Chapter 1246. Lin Zhen's proposal was simple, but it was very practical. 2 pieces of equipment on the level of 18 swords were used as a betrothal gift. This was very rare in the entire history of the Fiend Planet. It was even unprecedented. Proposing to a bride at someone else's wedding, this seemingly absurd scene happened. Although the Emperor family strongly objected and threatened, the Nine-Tailed King forcefully made the decision this time. She agreed to let the 2 daughters of the Bai family marry Lin Zhen. The people from the Emperor family were furious. In the end, they left in anger. The Nine-Tailed King did not care at all. Both sides had already started fighting. It was clear that the people from the Emperor family could not stop Lin Zhen now. Some of the divine kings invited by the Nine-Tailed King also changed their attitude. They were willing to help the Nine-Tailed King resist the threat. Emperor Sky even wanted to fight to the death with the Bai family and Lin Zhen, but Zhang Huang stopped him. "Brother Emperor Sky, don't be rash. Right now, the Tree God King and the Nine Ghost King are both injured. It's very disadvantageous for us to fight head-on. I've already informed my brother, Lusman, about what happened here. He's on the way now. He'll arrive tonight." Emperor Sky's eyes lit up. "You mean? Once my brother arrives and the Tree God King and the rest are healed, we can fight back. At that time, whether it's the Bai family or the Ghost King, they'll just be turtles in a jar. We'll definitely avenge you." Emperor Sky glared at Lin Zhen. "Forget it. We've already embarrassed ourselves enough today. It doesn't matter if we embarrass ourselves a little longer. I'd like to see how long you can be smug for." Everyone from the Emperor family retreated, leaving only the people from the Bai family. The Nine-Tailed King did not care about them. She immediately announced that Lin Zhen and the 2 daughters of the Bai family were husband and wife. Under everyone's witness, after a short ceremony, the 3 of them were married. It was not that Lin Zhen and the rest wanted to end things hastily, but everyone knew that this matter was not over. A great battle could start at any time. After Lin Zhen handed the 2 swords to his wives, they returned the swords to Lin Zhen. They were different from the Ju Tian. If they truly wanted to marry Lin Zhen, they wouldn't really accept the betrothal gift. After all, these swords were more useful to Lin Zhen. The Nine-Tailed King looked at Lin Zhen unhappily. "I really don't know how to address you." Lin Zhen also laughed. "I'm afraid that they won't be used to suddenly changing the way they address each other. It's better to just keep it this way. We're all martial artists who have lived for countless years. We can't even calculate the chaos of seniority, so why bother with these small details?" "That's true, but today is your wedding night. Can it go smoothly?" Seeing the guests gradually disperse, Lin Zhen shook his head slightly. "It's impossible. The other party will definitely make a comeback. What I'm worried about now is the safety of the Bai family." The Nine-Tailed King waved her hand. "Don't worry about that. The Bai family has a protective array that has been passed down for hundreds of millions of years. Once this array is activated, even a ruler won't be able to break it in a short period of time. Those below the ruler realm won't be able to break it. Our clansmen will be very safe inside." "That's great. Let Su Su and Snow White hide inside. Today's matter won't be forgotten." "I can't speak for you. They are your wives now. If you want to say something, say it yourself." The Nine-Tailed King turned and left. Only Lin Zhen and the other 2 were left. In fact, there was no need for Lin Zhen to say anything. Snow White and Su Su already knew about today's situation. When they saw Lin Zhen walk over, they immediately went to greet him and grabbed his arm. "The 2 of you won't have any conflicts with each other anymore?" Lin Zhen smiled. "That's all in the past. There's no reason for us to fight anymore. What's there to fight about?" Snow White rolled her eyes at Lin Zhen. She still felt a little indignant. Bai Susu happily grabbed Lin Zhen's arm. "Being able to stay with you and my sister is my greatest happiness." Lin Zhen was just about to say something when Snow White suddenly put a finger on his lips. "Don't say anything. Let's go rest for a while." Lin Zhen was stunned for a moment. Then, he understood Snow White's intentions. Snow White clearly knew that something big was going to happen today. She had to make the best use of her time and not have any regrets. Lin Zhen looked at the time. It shouldn't be that soon. He immediately led his 2 wives into his flying palace. The control room of the Sword Palace became a temporary home for the 3 of them. In front of the person she liked, Bai Susu let go of her worries and boldly entangled herself with her husband. Even though it was Bai Susu's first time, her fox bloodline meant that she was destined to be a seductress. Her movements were stiff, but it was still very satisfying. Snow White also joined in, allowing Lin Zhen to enjoy the bliss of having 2 wives at once. This was probably the greatest pleasure in the world. Lin Zhen, who was entangled with Bai Susu's fists and legs, deeply understood the meaning of being a hero's grave. There were very few people who could extricate themselves from such an environment. In the end, he became one with Bai Susu. The battle lasted for more than 3 hours. When it was finally over, the sweaty Snow White suddenly approached Lin Zhen. "Honey, hurry up and absorb Susu's yin. It'll definitely be beneficial for you." Lin Zhen sensed a surge of peculiar energy entering his body. It was the energy surging out of Snow White's body. He had experienced this feeling once before. It was when he first got together with Snow White. However, Snow White's energy was ice, while Bai Susu's energy seemed to be a neutralizing energy. Lin Zhen didn't dare to delay. He immediately followed Snow White's instructions and absorbed the energy into his body. The energy entered his body and directly affected the Chaos Green Lotus in the God world. As the energy entered the heart of the Green Lotus, a shocking change happened. At this moment, the several divine avatars residing on the flower petals all began to emit a surge of energy that gathered at the heart of the lotus. Under the effect of this neutralizing energy, they actually began to entangle with each other and fuse together. In the end, they actually transformed into a single lotus seed. The lotus seed was crystal clear. There were various types of energy on it. Currently, it was only lacking fire and earth. Of course, it also knew the power of water. The water divine avatars were still in the primordial realm. This is the Chaos Lotus Seed. Lin Zhen was extremely shocked by this scene. He didn't expect the Chaos Green Lotus to nurture a lotus seed with Susu's help. The energy in the lotus seed was obviously insufficient. However, once all the energy elements were gathered, Lin Zhen couldn't be sure what kind of changes would happen to the lotus seed. "Susu, thank you. Schwerer, thank you." The Bai sisters smiled as they snuggled up to Lin Zhen's chest. Their fluffy hair, rosy cheeks, and big eyes curved in happiness. They were like 2 satisfied little foxes. To them, harmony was the happiest time. To Lin Zhen, the more happiness he had, the more responsibility he had. Lin Zhen's mentality moved. He glanced at the radar screen and heard Crazy's notification. Chapter 1247. Hearing Chris's warning, Lin Zhen knew that the Real challenge had come. The 8 sledgehammers had fought with Lin Zhen in Skywind Valley, but that battle had been affected by the hurricane, so it didn't count. If Lin Zhen wanted to get through the current situation, he had to get through the 8 sledgehammers. He knew that this battle would be very dangerous, and the odds were stacked against him. But Lin Zhen had no other choice, and he didn't want to make any other choice, unless he could abandon the Bai family and leave. But how could he face Snow White and Bai Susu, who had just married him? Lin Zhen couldn't do that, and if he ran, it would mean that he was afraid. Lin Zhen had never been afraid of anyone. "Schwerer, Susu, you 2 go back. Don't come out under the protection of the Bai family's formation. Just cultivate patiently." The 2 women's eyes reddened. They were worried about Lin Zhen, but there was nothing they could do. "Hurry up and go. Your aptitudes are very high. I think you'll be able to reach the peak of High God after a single seclusion." Although Snow White and Bai Susu were reluctant, they still left very sensibly. None of them were ordinary people. As martial artists, they were very clear about when to make the right choice. When Snow White and Bai Susu returned, The Bai family's protective formation activated. Lin Jun finally relaxed. Now that he had nothing to worry about, he could boldly fight these God Kings without any worries. Although everyone calls me the Ghost Face King, my true divine power hasn't reached the standard of a God King. I haven't become a God King yet. Now it seems that the path to becoming a God King isn't easy to walk. Although you have more people, I have no scruples this time. We can play properly. Who knows who will win and who will lose? Lin Jun looked at the Bai family's flying palaces. There were a total of 6 flying palaces, including Emperor Sky's mid-tier palace, Tree God King's low-tier palace, 9 Ghost King's mid-tier palace, Lusman's mid-tier palace, and Demonic Corpse King and Violent Ape King's low-tier palace. The 6 palaces came like a dark cloud. They had already informed the Lord of the Abyss of the Underground City that no matter how they fought this time, the guards of the underground city would not interfere. As for what kind of losses it might cause, that was even less of a problem. The Emperor clans were very rich, they didn't care about losses. Lin Jun stood at the control panel of the Sword Palace and watched as the other party rapidly approached. The 6 flying palaces stirred up the dark clouds, and the rolling airflow brought about strong winds. The vast power scared the residents of the underground city so much that they didn't dare to go out. Above the underground city, there was also a layer of yellow light shield to prevent these immortals from endangering the safety of ordinary people. Lin Jun knew that after the other side had arrived, they had most likely planned to leave the flying palace and engage in close combat with him. That was because the other side had about 10 God Kings. They definitely wanted to surround and attack him. However, Lin Jun wasn't going to give them this opportunity so easily. Sitting on a divine artifact like the Sword Palace and 5 divine swords in hand, Lin Jun felt that if he didn't teach these arrogant bastards an unforgettable lesson, he would be letting himself down. Crazy transmitted the entire scene of the sky, 360 degrees without any blind spots. The position of each flying palace was constantly being broadcasted. Master, please take note. Right now, the other side has 3 mid-grade palaces and 3 low-grade palaces. They are preparing to seal off all of your escape routes. Their encirclement has already begun. Lin Jun chuckled. How naive. These God Kings have probably never fought a battle with a flying palace before. That's for sure. God Kings are very protective of a flying palace. How could they be willing to use a flying palace to fight? Normally, only sovereigns have such wealth. Crazy had inherited the authority of the 100 Birds sovereign. Her speech was now very imposing. Then, do their flying palaces have the ability to threaten my sword palace? Yes. Although ordinary flying palaces aren't equipped with weapons, every flying palace has an energy thruster that can launch a fierce attack. That kind of shockwave can threaten our flying palaces to a certain extent. However, as long as Master has enough energy reserves, it won't be able to threaten the flying palaces. Lin Jun checked the energy reserves in the energy storage. It could be used for flying for a long time, but if used in a fight it would be consumed very quickly. Whatever. Wealth is just a worldly possession. If I win this battle, I can have whatever I want in the future. Lin Jun immediately looked for his first target on the radar screen. Of the 6 flying palaces, the one facing Lin Jun was the 9 Ghost Kings' flying palace. Behind him was the Godtree King's flying palace. On the left was Lusman's flying palace. On the right was Imperial Sky's flying palace. Below them was the Violent Ape King's flying palace. Lin Jun's first target was the Fiend Corpse King's White Bone Palace. This guy must have thought that by hiding up there, he wouldn't be noticed by me. However, he probably wouldn't have thought that I hate it the most when someone is above me, except for my woman. Lin Jun raised his hand, and 5 of the 18 legendary swords appeared in his hand. Fire Crane, Thunder Gull. With 2 cracking sounds, Lin Jun inserted the 2 legendary swords into the holes. Instantly, a bright light shone out. Master, the charging is complete. You can enter battle mode at any time. Good. Wait for my order. Lin Jun looked outside. The 6 flying palaces had completed their encirclement. Right now, there were 6 radio waves being transmitted over at the same time. Lin Jun connected the call, and the images of Imperial Sky and the other 6 flying palaces appeared. Imperial Sky's hair and beard fluttered as he said to Lin Jun, "Devil Face King, you have insulted my monarch clan today. You have brought shame to an ancient clan. This action will bring disaster to you and the Bai family." Lin Jun snorted coldly, "Since it's a disaster, why are you still talking to me? Just do it. I'll give you a chance now. You are already unforgivable. However, if you hand over all your belongings, I can let the Bai family go and let them live. Don't forget, the Bai family still has your 2 wives. Since they are already my wives, they should live and die with me. You don't have to worry about that." What a stubborn devil face king. "Since that's the case, then all of you can go to hell. First, your tortoise shells." Lin Jun interrupted Imperial Sky and pressed the button of the Thunder Gull sword. Suddenly, a loud noise shook the sky of the underground city. A bolt of divine thunder that pierced through the sky shot out from a hole in Lin Jun's sword palace. Its target was the demonic corpse king's white bone palace. Everyone could clearly see on the screen that a huge crack had appeared on the demonic corpse king's white bone palace under Lin Jun's attack. Right after the bolt of lightning, the sword palace activated another cannon. A huge fireball was shot out like a missile, bombarding the white bone palace. Chapter 1248. Lin Jun's sword palace opened fire and destroyed the demonic corpse king's white bone palace. This was a huge warning to all the god kings. No one expected Lin Jun's palace to be equipped with firepower. This was because most flying palaces only had the ability to collide and perish together. They didn't have the ability to open fire. What's up with this guy's palace? Why can he open fire? Be careful. Be careful. I don't think he can fire more than a few times. Before they could react, Lin Jun controlled the palace to fire again. This time, his target was Imperial Sky's speed-type palace. It was a mid-tier palace and was very fast. If he wasn't careful, the enemy might escape. Lin Jun wanted to destroy it first. He raised his hand and Jackdaw appeared in his hand. He aimed at Imperial Sky's palace and fired an icy sword beam. Wherever the sword beam passed, the speed palace was covered in a layer of frost. It could no longer use its speed advantage, and became a live target in the sky. Lin Jun's sword palace blasted out bolts of lightning and fire sword beams. After 6 or 7 consecutive bombardments, the speed palace finally collapsed. A priceless mid-tier palace was destroyed by Lin Jun's bombardment, just like that. Imperial Sky and the others tried everything but couldn't keep the palace intact. They were so angry that their eyes turned red and they ran out pathetically. "Smash it! Smash this bastard's palace down. Otherwise we can't do anything to him." The current situation was like a group of civilian trucks surrounding a tank. The tank could fire at will and attack anyone. The only way for the trucks to stop was to crash into it with their own weight. However, this decision wasn't easy to make. Every flying palace was a god king's lifeblood. If they crashed into it, it would be destroyed. Obviously, Ghostface King's palace was stronger. However, if they didn't do that, they would be destroyed one by one. Just as they couldn't make up their minds, Lin Jun opened fire again. This time, it was Violent Ape King's low-tier palace. Under the concentrated firepower of the 3 cannons, the low-grade palace couldn't withstand it at all. The Violent Ape King let out a strange cry and rose into the air from the palace. He furiously swung the coiling dragon staff in his hand towards Lin Jun's sword palace. Unfortunately, this kind of attack was like scratching an itch through a boot to such a large palace. It was of no use at all. His staff couldn't even cause much of a ripple in the palace's protective barrier. After losing 3 palaces in a row, these god kings finally couldn't hold on any longer. They were really unlucky this time. They had forgotten that Ghostface King had such a tortoise shell, and it was a tortoise shell with thorns. If they did not destroy the Sword Palace, they would not be able to do anything to the Ghost Mask King. Although the Flying Palace was precious, they couldn't care less about it right now. First was Ninth Ghost King. He controlled his palace and activated its energy shield to the maximum. Then, he charged towards Lin Zhen's Sword Palace. Energy shields could cause energy to clash with each other. Under this attack, Lin Zhen's palace shook, and the energy shield dimmed a lot. Ninth Ghost King's palace's energy reserve was much weaker than Lin Zhen's. With the clash, it instantly turned into a huge fireball and exploded on the spot. Ninth Ghost King escaped from the palace in a wretched state. Emperor Sky, I'm going all out this time. Kill Ghostface King. His palace is mine. Following the 9 Ghost King's actions, the Tree God King also activated his low-grade palace and used a suicidal attack to ruthlessly crash into it. Another shocking explosion. Lin Zhen saw that his Sword Palace's energy reserve was almost empty. Although the Sword Palace had a lot of energy, it couldn't withstand the opponent's suicidal attacks. However, Lin Zhen didn't run. Since that was the case, he would make the opponent lose all of his palaces. Lussman and the other 8 Great Hammers controlled their palaces and charged forward. In the huge explosion, metal fragments scattered towards the underground city. Previously, there were 7 palaces in the sky. Now, only Lin Zhen's Sword Palace was left floating alone. After the Sword Palace's energy shield flickered a few times, it finally extinguished. At this moment, Emperor Sky and the others finally recognized the origin of Lin Zhen's palace. It's actually the 18 Godly Swords sword box. Ghostface King actually has such a good item. Snatch it. Whoever kills Ghostface King has the right to choose. There were a total of 9 God Kings present. At this moment, they all rushed towards Lin Zhen. The Sword Palace's energy shield had already faded. They could directly enter the palace. Lin Zhen obviously wouldn't let them enter the palace. With a thought, he put away the Sword Palace and revealed himself. There was a sun, moon, and stars hovering on his forehead. He wore a ghost mask on his face. A mysterious yellow pagoda floated above his head. Behind him, huge demonic god wings flapped in the wind. His armor transformation was complete. With the golden eagle and thunder gull divine swords in his hands, Lin Zhen appeared in his strongest battle form. Ah! If you want to win with numbers, then go ahead and try. Facing the current Ghostface King, every God King present felt that this battle wouldn't be easy. This person's equipment was simply too strong. Just his equipment alone was enough to support him in challenging those of a higher level. Everyone, be careful. Don't give him any opportunities. Huang Tian roared. He didn't expect Lin Zhen to be the first to attack when facing so many God Kings. The demonic god wings flapped and the genes of the light chasing beast activated. Lin Zhen pounced towards the demonic corpse king at lightning speed. Lin Zhen understood this principle. When he arrived in front of the demonic corpse king, he struck with both swords. Akala seal. After all, the demonic corpse king was a god king. It immediately released its metal elite zombie. The metal elite zombie also had the battle strength of a god king. However, it was at the bottom of the god kings. Facing the metal elite zombie's sharp claws, Lin Zhen didn't dodge. His 2 swords, supported by stacked battle techniques, executed cross-slash. The metal elite zombie's claws clawed at Lin Zhen. However, a lotus flower bloomed in the air and easily blocked the metal elite zombie's attack. The metal elite zombie couldn't block Lin Zhen's 2 swords and was cut into 4 pieces on the spot. After finishing off the metal elite zombie with 1 strike, Lin Zhen didn't stop his charge. He directly knocked away the metal elite zombie's body that hadn't been broken into pieces and arrived in front of the demonic corpse king. Stay here. Great Vajra wheel seal. The demonic corpse king didn't expect Lin Zhen to be so fierce. The metal elite zombie couldn't even withstand a single blow. Before it could make any adjustments, it was killed by Lin Jun in one strike. After finishing off the demonic corpse king with one strike, the ninth ghost king roared and charged over. 9 heavenly ghosts had been completely released. Ghost Face King, return my disciple's life. With a thought, Lin Jun teleported. Chapter 1249. The combination of the demonic god wings and teleportation, coupled with Lin Jun's own speed, caught these god kings off guard. However, these god kings were not to be trifled with. Lin Jun had first killed the monster corpse king, and now he was attacking the violent ape king. This had completely infuriated them. Devil Mask King, you're too arrogant. Arrogance comes with a price. Even if you have teleportation, I'll make sure you stay here today. The Tree God King was the first to attack. Dense vines came from all directions, blocking Lin Jun's path. As for the 9 Ghost King's 9 sky ghosts, they let out terrifying screams in the air as they advanced through the gaps between the branches. Each sky ghost's movement was very meticulous. Even if Lin Jun teleported, he would definitely find it difficult to move under the entanglement of the sky ghosts and the branches. The one in charge of the main attack was Golden Hammer Lusman of the 8 Great Hammers. As for Huang Tian, Zhang Huang, and the others, they also used their trump cards. Everyone was prepared to kill Lin Jun, but no one went to save the violent Ape King. In their hearts, they had already made a choice. They would sacrifice the violent Ape King to keep Lin Jun here. The violent Ape King's only chance of survival was to try his best to last a little longer under Lin Jun's attacks. The violent Ape King immediately understood everyone's thoughts. Although he was indignant, he had no other choice. Only by living could he talk about the future. Wahahaha! Devil Mask King, don't treat me like a close-combat idiot like the Monster Corpse King. If you want to kill me, let's see if your bones are tough enough. The violent Ape King roared as his body suddenly increased to a few thousand meters tall, turning into a giant ape that connected the sky and the earth. His body trembled as countless giant apes were formed. Each of them had the strength of a quasi-god king. Although they were not very useful in a battle of this level, it was good to be able to delay for a while. As Lin Jun rapidly approached, he realized that he had finally come into contact with a God King's battle. The violent Ape King's current state was clearly that of a God King's divine body. The so-called God body was an energy body created by the spirit, chi, and soul of the entire body. As long as the energy of the God body wasn't used up, it wouldn't die, no matter where you attacked. It could be understood that the divine body was the HP of a God King. One could deal damage and critical damage, but it would be difficult to kill a God King in one hit. The violent Ape King also had a low-grade battle armor that shone with golden light. This battle armor could also reduce the damage he received. Raising the coiling dragon staff in his hand, the violent Ape King bared his fangs and swung his staff at Lin Jun. As long as he could stall for 3 seconds, Lin Jun would definitely be defeated under the encirclement of the deities. The violent Ape King did not believe that he could not last 3 seconds in front of Lin Jun. All of you want to use me as bait, but I'm going to fight against fate. When the violent Ape King attacked Lin Jun, he suddenly felt his mind clear, as if he had comprehended something. In that instant, he was ecstatic. As long as he could get past Lin Jun, the violent Ape King would definitely have a breakthrough. Becoming an expert among the God Kings was just around the corner. Facing the violent Ape King's attack, Lin Jun had also entered his best battle state. The coiling dragon staff in front of him violently descended, causing the space to tremble. When Lin Jun was about to close in, his mind moved. Chaos Green Lotus, 1 leaf bloom. The Chaos Green Lotus appeared in the air. The lightning lotus leaf bloomed, and a bolt of lightning descended from the sky. It just happened to appear in the path of the violent Ape King's staff. The power of the lightning caused the staff to tremble, causing it to miss. The densely packed apes in front of him charged over. Not only did Lin Jun not slow down, but he increased his speed once again. Chaos Green Lotus, 2 leaf bloom. On top of the chaos green lotus, the second lotus leaf bloomed. This time, it was the wind lotus leaf. A gust of wind blew. The wind was strong enough to sweep through the world, sweeping away all the ape. 2 consecutive moves caused the violent Ape King's attack to miss. Lin Jun, who had already increased his speed in advance, arrived in front of him in an instant. This huge ape was like a giant star beast. It waved the coiling dragon's staff and howled, wanting to attack again. Lin Jun gripped the golden condor sword in his hand. Borrowing the huge impact, he stabbed it into the violent Ape King's stomach. Open! The demon god's wings flapped fiercely, pushing Lin Jun's body upwards. He opened up the violent Ape King's chest. The golden condor sword slid past the violent Ape King's low-grade armor, letting out an unpleasant metallic sound. The low-grade armor couldn't block the golden condor sword and was cut open, crippled. The energy in the violent Ape King's body was wildly spurting out from the wound. Lin Jun's sword had destroyed 50% of his divine body's energy. Before he could howl, Lin Jun had already risen in front of him. The Thunder Seagull sword in his left hand fiercely swung. The violent Ape King's head suffered a heavy blow. Another 20% of his energy was destroyed by this sword. Devil Face King, you can't kill me. The violent Ape King wasn't worried because Lussman was about to reach Lin Jun's back. He just needed to hold on for one more second. Facing Lin Jun's third sword, the violent Ape King simply smashed the staff in his hand. He just needed to buy a little more time. However, Lin Jun didn't seem to know that Lussman was charging at him. He waved his hands left and right, slashing twice. Another 20% of the violent Ape King's energy was depleted. However, Lussman had already reached Lin Jun's back. He sneered. Devil Face King, you're still a little too slow. The violent Ape King was already in a critical state. Lin Jun could kill him with another attack. However, the violent Ape King sneered at Lin Jun. He believed that Lin Jun wouldn't dare to trade his life for his. If you don't run now, you won't have the chance. A pair of golden hammers came crashing down from behind. However, the violent Ape King never expected Lin Jun to ignore it. He waved the golden eagle in his hand and stabbed it into the violent Ape King's chest again. The last 10% of the violent Ape King's energy was completely depleted in this attack. The violent Ape King was dead. Boom! Lussman's golden hammers slammed into Lin Jun's back. However, a white light flashed on Lin Jun's body. Under his skin, a bright silver armor appeared and took Lussman's attack head-on. Although Lin Jun was also injured by this attack, it wasn't serious. Supreme-grade armor, mixed yuan armor. Not only could it protect him, but it could also reduce the damage by 50%. This was what Lin Jun relied on. In addition, Lin Jun had a pair of demon god wings on his back, which also reduced the damage by 10%. At this moment, a lotus bloomed. Although he didn't know how much it could reduce, it was undoubtedly a powerful defense. It reduced Lussman's thunderous attack by quite a bit. When the dying violent Ape King saw this scene, he came to a sudden realization. Unfortunately, it was all too late. Lin Jun killed him, but he didn't suffer any damage. The enlightenment he had earlier and the feeling that he was about to break through was probably just an illusion. Not every epiphany would lead to a breakthrough. Success only belonged to those who were fully prepared. Chapter 1250. After killing the ferocious Ape King, Lin Jun knew that this was his limit. These godly monarchs weren't idiot. Lin Jun had suddenly succeeded once and relied on his powerful equipment to succeed a second time. There was no way he could succeed a third time. Although he had the Chaos Essence armor, Demon God wings, and Lotus Divine Body to offset most of the damage for Lin Jun, Golden Hammer Lussman's attack still made him feel very uncomfortable. After suffering Lussman's attack, the surrounding dense leaf maze and heavenly ghosts had already charged over. Ha ha ha! Ghost Face King, you're quite capable. You actually managed to kill the ferocious Ape King under such circumstances. However, you're still brainless. So what if you killed the ferocious ape king? You're still going to die here. Indeed, people die from greed. You killed too many people because of your excessive greed. In the end, you lost your life. Come, I've taken a fancy to your mysterious yellow pagoda. It's mine. The godly monarchs behind him were rushing over, but Lin Zhen didn't even turn his head. He didn't have the time to turn back. If he did, there would be no chance. No matter who attacked him, he had to temporarily resist. Black hole beast transformation. All of this had long been a plan in Lin Zhen's mind. After killing the ferocious ape king, all of this had been carried out. The black hole appeared in front of him. Imperial Sky, who had been charging over, immediately dodged in fright and prepared to attack from the side. Even a powerful godly monarch like him didn't dare to resist the black hole. The moment he dodged, 9 Ghost King and Tree God King immediately cried out. Lin Zhen's black hole death ripples devoured the 2 heavenly ghosts and large swaths of leaves without any hindrance. The originally flawless entrapment array had its flaws and gaps opened up at this moment. Lin Zhen had forcefully opened up a path of escape for himself. Rumble. Behind him, Lusman, 9 Ghost Kings, 2 heavenly ghosts, and Imperial Sky's attacks landed on Lin Zhen at the same time. However, Lin Zhen relied on his powerful defensive abilities to only injure him but not kill him. With a flap of the demonic god's wings, Lin Zhen spun in the air and teleported away. Everyone, come with me if you have the ability. Let's see if I, Ghost Mask King Lin Zhen, am afraid of you bunch of trash. With a teleport, Lin Zhen escaped. Huang Tian was fuming with rage. It was his first time encountering something like this after living for so long. Ghostface King actually managed to escape under such circumstances. Master of the underground city, I am Emperor Sky. Please help me close the entrance to the underground city. I want to kill Ghostface King once and for all. The Lord of the Abyss respected the monarch clans very much because he had received help from the ruler of the clear skies many years ago. Therefore, he obeyed the Emperor Sky's words. Soon, the entrance to the dungeon was closed. 2 metal gates that would only be opened during battle covered the entrance that was tens of thousands of kilometers long. This door was a treasure of the Kingdom of Abyss. Let alone a god king, even a sovereign would not be able to force his way through. As long as this door was closed, Lin Zhen would not be able to fly out of the underground city. This move was indeed effective. Lin Zhen flew in that direction for a while. When he saw the closed door, he immediately turned around and ran back. Since he could no longer leave the underground city, it helped Lin Zhen make up his mind. Behind him, the Tree King, Huang Tian, the 8 Great Hammers, and the 9 Ghost King gave chase. They had to kill Lin Zhen no matter what. Everyone looked at the sky in fear. No one dared to go out at a time like this. A battle between god kings like this was hard to come by in a million years. Perhaps it was more common in places like the Sea of Constellations, Dark Light World, and Beast King Prison. However, it was unprecedented in the Kingdom of Abyss. The side with more god kings had actually lost 2 of their own. Heavens, this Ghostface King is too strong. If it was a one-on-one battle, none of them would be a match for him. Father, I have a wish in my heart. I want to be as strong as Ghostface King when I grow up. Children, don't talk nonsense. Ghostface King only succeeded for a moment. He will be finished soon. He won't. He'll definitely survive and win. Lin Zhen didn't know that he had unknowingly become the idol of children. He didn't have the time to care about anything else. He needed a place to hide. His body flew across the sky. Below him was the underground city. Above the city, there was a yellow light barrier protecting it. It tried its best to prevent ordinary people from being affected by the shockwaves from the battle between the god kings. It was not impossible for Lin Zhen to forcefully break through the light barrier. However, with the few god kings chasing after him, a huge battle could very well destroy the underground city. Lin Zhen wasn't a kind person. He had killed countless people, but he still tried his best not to hurt ordinary people. However, the underground city was already sealed off. If he didn't go there, where else could he go? Lin Jun glanced out of the corner of his eye and confirmed where he wanted to go. It was the underground city's palace, the residence of the Abyss Master. Below the Abyss Master's palace was the place Lin Jun initially wanted to go. It was the underground palace. The underground palace was the bottom of the abyss. The deeper he went, the closer he got to the core of the demonic star. Lin Jun came to the Abyss Kingdom and obtained the identity of a 9-star purgatory warrior. His goal was to go to the underground palace and comprehend the true essence of the earth element there. Now that the battle had started, innocent people would be hurt everywhere. However, the Abyss Master wouldn't. This guy ordered the underground city to be sealed. Wasn't he trying to kill him? Lin Jun didn't care about his life or death. Since you want my life, then I won't have any scruples. I hope your palace is more durable. Lin Jun flapped his demon god wings and swooped down from the sky. He waved the golden eagle sword in his hand and slashed at the light barrier above the palace. This kind of defense couldn't withstand Lin Jun's strong attack and broke open a hole. Haha! Today, let's have a decisive battle at the top of the Forbidden City. The palace guards were originally watching the battle of the godly kings in the sky with a smile. They thought that no matter how the battle turned out, it wouldn't affect the palace. They didn't expect that Ghostface King to rush in directly. The guards were all scared witless. They didn't dare to stop Lin Jun at all, allowing him to rush into the palace. A gust of wind swept past. Wherever Lin Jun passed, just the airflow created a huge ravine. The palace was in ruins. Immediately after, the 8 godly kings also came whistling, chasing after Lin Jun. All the palaces he passed along the way collapsed. Lin Jun went all the way to the deepest part of the palace. This was where the Abyss Master lived. Lin Jun found the underground palace with a sweep of his mind power. Ha ha! Still want to hide? Today Lin Jun will be here. He raised one hand, Starfall. A ball of starlight fell from the sky and bombarded the entrance of the underground palace. The disguised palace above turned to dust, revealing the bottomless underground palace. The pitch-black endless abyss seemed to want to devour everything. When you were staring at the abyss was also staring at you. Chapter 1251. Lin Jun's actions stunned everyone. This palace was the palace of the Deep Abyss Master, and every Deep Abyss Master was a powerful godly monarch. Lin Jun was already being chased by everyone, yet he still dared to offend the Deep Abyss Master. It seemed like this guy was really tired of living. However, although the palace was broken and the underground palace was open, the Deep Abyss Master didn't appear. Chase after him. This kid will only be digging his own grave if he goes deep into the underground palace. He definitely won't be able to escape. The 8 great godly monarchs followed suit and rushed into the entrance of the bottomless abyss. Lin Jun ran at the front, feeling the bone-chilling wind rushing out of the depths of the earth. The Fiend's star was extremely huge, and the deep abyss country was deep in the earth's core. Going down could really be considered a bottomless pit. The demon god wings on Lin Jun's back flapped violently. As he flew down, a layer of frost hung on his wings. The underground abyss was bottomless. Even with Lin Jun's mind power, which could reach millions of kilometers, he simply couldn't feel the end. The few pursuers behind him were also ruthless. As godly monarchs, having a pair of wings wasn't a rare thing. Although it couldn't be compared to Lin Jun's demon god wings, it was impossible for Lin Jun to move at full speed while going down. It would be very difficult for him to shake them off. The few of them ran and chased like this. This process lasted for almost a month. Although this place wasn't close to the core of the Fiend's star, the deep abyss earth chi was already extremely dense. The path down became narrower and narrower. He basically couldn't feel the existence of air, not even the slightest bit. Along the way, he passed through fissured caves, underground rivers, mining areas, rock formations, and so on. Lin Jun didn't find a chance to stop. It wasn't until a month later that Lin Zhen's mind power finally sensed the ground. It was the ground deep in the Earth's core. He had finally reached the bottom of the underground abyss. What's that? Lin Zhen's mind power saw a mass of gray aura on the ground. It was almost solid. Crazy promptly replied in the dimensional universe, Master, this is the target you've been looking for. It's the Earth Chi. Earth Chi? The aura of the Earth? You can understand it that way, but a more accurate name would be the aura of the Earth element. This is the place closest to the Earth's core on the demonic planet. The aura of the Earth element gathers here. Don't underestimate it just because it's a gas. Its density far surpasses that of any kind of Earth element. Be it mud, clay, frozen earth, or even rocks, none of them can be compared to it. Lin Zhen was delighted. Then this place is very suitable for cultivation. Of course. Cultivating here will yield twice the results with half the effort. However, Master, don't be happy too early. Running here is actually a dead end. How are you going to deal with the pursuers behind you? Lin Zhen fiercely gritted his teeth. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Let's fight it out with them. Lin Zhen could be said to be in his strongest combat form. The mixed Yuan armor also appeared on his body. The silver-white armor combined with his body's armor transformation made his defense unbelievably strong. In addition to his powerful recovery ability, no matter how strong these godkings were, Lin Zhen was confident that he could make them pay a huge price. Moreover, he firmly believed that the other party might not have the courage to perish together with him. This was because if the person before him died, it would benefit the person after him. No one would want to be the first to help others. This had nothing to do with one's strength and realm. It had to do with human nature. As long as the battle dragged on, there might be a chance to turn things around. His feet finally landed on the ground. Sensing the thick and viscous earth chi, he felt like he was swimming in mercury. Even raising his hand was a very difficult task. Before he could carefully sense the effects of the earth chi, the pursuers had already caught up. The ones at the front were Lusman and Nine Ghost King. However, when the two of them arrived near Lin Zhen, they were exhausted. They didn't rush to attack immediately. Instead, they faced off against Lin Zhen from afar. After that, Huang Tian and Godtree King quickly arrived as well. Then, Zhang Huang, Wang Xingba, and Zhu Yuanhu arrived one after another. When the 7 great godly kings were all present, Emperor Sky then faced Lin Zhen. Ghostface King, I admit that I underestimated you. If you had charged out of the Abyss Country, I might never have been able to kill you. However, you ran into the underground abyss in the end. Although you could escape for a while, you sent yourself to a dead end in the end. Lin Zhen snorted from his nostrils. It's still unknown whether it's a dead end or not. Since I'm already here, let's cut the crap. The 7 of you can come at me together. Let's see if I'll take a step back. After transforming into his armor, Lin Zhen's figure was huge. The various treasures on his body shone brightly. His aura had reached its peak. Although these godkings had the advantage in numbers, they all knew that it wouldn't be easy to kill Lin Zhen. Lusman pondered for a moment. Guys, if the 8 great hammers work together, we'll have boundless power. Why don't you leave this Ghostface King to us? As soon as this suggestion was made, the 9 Ghost King, Huang Tian, and the Godtree King felt apprehensive. Right now, Lin Zhen was like a turtle in a jar. He had nowhere to run. If the 8 great hammers were to take action, it shouldn't be a problem. However, what would happen after that? Wouldn't all the treasures on the Ghostface King fall into the hands of the 8 great hammers? When Lin Zhen dies, wouldn't they lose their value? Once the birds are killed, the bow is cast aside, and the hound is cooked once the rabbit is dead. Who couldn't be unprepared for such a situation? The few of them exchanged glances and came to a tacit understanding. The 3 of them had formed a strategic alliance in their hearts. The 9 Ghost King said sinisterly, "Why go through so much trouble? Let's just kill him together." The The treasures will belong to whoever snatches them. It's the most reasonable thing to do. Lusman couldn't accept such a suggestion. The 8 great hammers were very strong when they worked together. However, Wang Xingba and Zhu Yuanhu were the weak points of the 8 great hammers. They had just entered the God King realm, and might not be able to adapt to such an intense battle. If one of them died, the 8 great hammers' joint battle technique would be gone. Lusman's heart skipped a beat. He said straightforwardly, "Since that's the case, the 8 great hammers will hold the line. I believe that the 3 of you will be able to deal with a mere Ghostface King." However, his words were even more unsettling. The 9 Ghost King and the others weren't fools. How could they make such a choice? The battle hadn't even started yet, but the few of them were already disunited. It was difficult for them to take action. However, when Lin Jun saw this scene, he felt a little uneasy. The situation was in a deadlock for the time being. However, the premise was that no one else could interfere. If another expert came and made a balanced choice, he would be in danger. Furthermore, this uneasy feeling seemed to be slowly approaching. The 9 Ghost King, Lusman, and the others clearly felt it. They stopped their discussion and looked up. A terrifying force was rapidly approaching. Chapter 1252. It was said that there were 9 Abyss Masters in the underground abyss. Each of the 9 Abyss Masters was an outstanding figure among the godly kings. Their strength was outstanding. The strongest among them even had the strength of a pseudo-dominator. A pseudo-dominator was also known as a half-step dominator. These 2 names had the same meaning. The underground city's King of Hatred was ranked in the top 3 among the 9 Abyss Masters. Even if he had not reached the level of a pseudo-dominator, he was close. His strength was even above Lusman and 9 Ghost King. The Emperor clan was able to establish themselves in the underground city because the King of Hatred had a relationship with the Azure Sky Dominator. In other words, he sealed the underground city. Therefore, when the King of Hatred arrived, Emperor Sky's eyes lit up. The other godly kings were on guard. If the person who came was really the King of Hatred, they would have to be careful. The 8 sledgehammers gathered together and were ready for battle. If there was a conflict, the 4 of them would not hesitate to join forces against the enemy. When facing other godly kings, they were not so nervous. This showed the King of Hatred's strength. The aura landed on the ground and the person inside was revealed. 2 heads, 8 arms, and a terrifying appearance like a ghost. The King of Hatred was not a human, nor was he a demon. Strictly speaking, the Abyss race was a branch of the demon race. However, they were not real demons. They were a race that belonged to the demon race. This race grew in different forms. In their eyes, there was no difference between beauty and ugliness. All of their growth and evolution was for the most advantageous form for battle. The more convenient it was for battle, the better. After the King of Hatred landed, he first looked at Emperor Sky. There was a circle of eyes on his head. They were green and extremely terrifying. The big mouth full of fangs smiled. A fiery red tongue reminded people of the tongue of a venomous snake. Emperor Sky, you haven't come to the abyss for a long time. Emperor Sky was not interested in the King of Hatred's appearance. He forced a smile. Brother, you haven't left the underground palace for a long time. In the outside world, ordinary matters are no longer worthy of me going out. Unless Senior Qing Tian returns, there is no one worthy of me going out personally. The countless eyes of the God of Hatred rolled around before he finally said, Emperor Sky, you little fellas aren't honest. You actually destroyed my palace. Even though I don't usually stay there, this still makes me lose a lot of face. There's a reason for this. Please don't hold it against us, Brother Hate. This time, the members of Emperor Sky spoke up to explain themselves. Of course, in the end, they pushed all the blame onto Lin Jun. The Lord of Hatred raised a claw and waved it. I know what's going on, and that's why I came. With that said, the Lord of Hatred said to the few of them, I'm afraid that you've fallen into this person's trap. If you want to deal with him, you have to work together. Of course, Lusman and the others knew that this was not a solution. However, the problem was that there was no leader among them. No one had the final say, and it was difficult for them to succeed. Now that the Lord of Hatred was here, Lusman did not want to make the atmosphere tense. Hence, he said, "Brother Hate, you'll be the one to command everyone today. What should we do?" The Lord of Hatred's cold gaze swept across Lin Jun. This Ghostface King's strength is actually average, but his combat skills and equipment are hard to deal with. If we forcefully attack, we might be injured. If we fight him one-on-one, it won't be easy to take him down. His gaze then turned back to Lusman and the others. His gaze was filled with eyes, and it made them break out in cold sweat. "Lusman, your 8 great hammers have caused quite a commotion on the demonic planet. From what I know, you guys have a joint attack method. If you don't mind, you can tell me about it." Lusman nodded. "We do have a method where the 4 of us attack together. The power of this attack can even be resisted by some sovereigns. However, this guy is very slippery. It won't be easy to successfully hit him." The Lord of Hatred nodded. "It's fine. This attack should be enough to get rid of this guy. Then, you guys get ready. Before you make your move, the 4 of us will join forces to suppress him. Then, you guys will deal the fatal blow. The 4 of us will split the loot equally with the 4 of you." Lusman was still a little hesitant. The Lord of Hatred's eyes flashed with a fierce light. "Lusman, you can ask around. When have I, Hate, ever not kept my word? Although the Abyss race is more savage, we're not despicable." Lusman gritted his teeth. "All right, since that's the case, we'll do as you say." The 8 of them quickly reached a balance. The Lord of Hatred, Tree King, 9 Ghost King, and Emperor Sky joined forces to attack. They wanted to suppress Lin Jun and create the best opportunity for the 8 great hammers to attack. The few of them, who were originally not of one mind, actually joined forces under the Lord of Hatred's mediation. Seeing this scene, Lin Jun knew that the most difficult time was coming. No matter what, he had to endure it. After he endured it, the situation might change. The Lord of Hatred had already charged over with the other 3. The first thing that came into view was one of the Lord of Hatred's arms. This arm was burning with green flames. At the same time, it was scorching, and there was a thick aura of death. This guy had clearly comprehended the true essence of fire. The arm was like a long whip ruthlessly lashing down. Lin Jun waved the golden eagle in his hand and charged forward. "Open!" A thunderous sound rang out in the air. Lin Jun felt as if thunder had exploded in front of his eyes. His body was ruthlessly sent flying. The Lord of Hatred's divine power far surpassed Lin Jun's. However, Lin Jun had the mixed yuan armor protecting him. The lotus flower bloomed on his body, so this attack did not cause too much damage. It was still within his range of tolerance. You have some skills. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance." Roar roar. The 2 sky ghosts behind him pounced forward and suddenly grabbed Lin Jun's shoulders tightly. This was the 9 Ghost King taking advantage of the opportunity to attack. Lin Jun tried his best to wave the sword in his hand and cut off the sky ghost's arm. However, this delay allowed the Tree King to rush in front of Lin Jun. The 6-foot-long staff in his hand ruthlessly lashed out at Lin Jun's shoulder. Even with the mixed yuan armor blocking, Lin Jun still felt intense pain. Get lost. The sun-moon star ring above Lin Jun's head flashed, and a mental attack hit the Tree King. The Tree King's movements instantly stopped. It was still unable to block Lin Jun's attack. However, before Lin Jun could counterattack, Emperor Sky's sword stabbed over from behind. Teleport. Lin Jun wanted to teleport to dodge, but the Lord of Hatred's arm suddenly locked onto one of Lin Jun's legs, interrupting his teleportation. He wanted to counterattack, but was blocked by the 9 Ghost King's ghost banner. He unleashed a great Vajra Chakra seal to force the 9 Ghost King back. The Tree King waved the 6-foot-long staff again and made a comeback. No matter how Lin Jun swung the 2 swords in his hands, the 9 Ghost King's ghost banner, the Lord of Hatred's arm, Emperor Sky's sword, and the Tree King's 6-foot-long staff were always able to find an opportunity to attack him. Chapter 12:53. No matter how hard Lin Jun tried, no matter how outstanding his equipment was, it was still difficult for him to defend against the attacks of the 8 God Kings. Especially with the Lord of Hatred, an expert close to a quasi-dominator, Lin Jun's attacks would often be suppressed. This guy was born for battle. Although his body was ugly, it was extremely convenient in battle. His attacks were as fast as lightning, and Lin Jun didn't even have the chance to teleport. With 9 Ghost King and the other 2 assisting from the side, Lin Jun was forced into a passive state. However, it would be difficult for them to kill Lin Jun. Lin Jun's Primal Chaos Green Lotus and Mixed Yuan armor played a huge role in the battle. The powerful defensive power of these 2 items blocked and dissolved the opponent's attacks, preventing Lin Jun from suffering too serious injuries. With his recovery ability, he was always able to hold on. However, it seemed that he wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer because Lussman and the others had finished preparing their attacks and were about to attack. Everyone attack together. Don't give him any space to dodge. Don't worry about me. I won't die in the abyss. Seeing that Lussman and the others' attacks were about to arrive, the Lord of Hatred's 8 arms suddenly danced in the air and wrapped around Lin Jun. 9 Ghost King and the others used all their strength to unleash powerful attacks. While attacking Lin Jun, the Lord of Hatred also suffered a lot of damage. However, his strength was also very strong. He resisted these attacks and firmly fixed Lin Jun in place. Lin Jun really didn't expect that there would be such a person who didn't fear death in battle. It was no wonder that the Lord of Hatred could reach this step. His fighting mentality was somewhat similar to Lin Jun's. This caused a lot of trouble for Lin Jun. He was already unable to dodge. However, Lin Jun didn't want to let the Lord of Hatred have an easy time. The golden eagle sword in his hand, under the urging of the gold aura, emitted an unstoppable sword aura and ruthlessly attacked the Lord of Hatred's body. Streaks of sharp sword chi cut it into a bloody mess. The Lord of Hatred activated its divine body, and under Lin Jun's attacks, its energy continued to decrease. However, he was still laughing strangely. It's useless, kid. It's too late. On the other side, the attacks of the 8 hammers finally arrived. Gold, silver, copper, and iron hammers rose into the air, transforming into an incomparably huge hammer. The appearance of the sledgehammer caused the earth veins in the abyss to flow. This attack contained the power of a sovereign. His aura firmly locked onto Lin Jun, not giving him any chance to escape. The Lord of Hatred's body ignited with raging flames, and it was still burning Lin Jun's body to its heart's content. Ha ha ha. Do you feel pain, Ghostface King? If you feel pain, then feel hatred. If you die, I'll take your soul. I like the hatred humans feel when they die. He would retreat the moment Lin Jun was about to be attacked. Lin Jun was very clear about this method. He was also fearless. With his absolute strength, he surpassed Lin Jun. He did not care about Lin Jun's counterattack. Lin Jun could not stop him from leaving. Faced with the Lord of Hatred and the ferocious attack that was about to hit his body, Lin Jun sneered. Your dedication shocked me, but I have to say that you're very stupid. Do you think you can kill me just like that? Do you still have the strength to fight back? Ridiculous. The 9 Ghost King and the others had already dodged, and the attack was about to arrive. However, the Lord of Hatred never expected that at this moment, Lin Jun would resolutely swallow a drop of liquid. This is the Sovereign's elixir. The Lord of Hatred never dreamed that Lin Jun would have the opportunity to swallow the Sovereign's elixir. It should be known that the Sovereign's elixir had a 100% effect the first time, 80% the second time, and 20% the fifth time. After that, there was no effect. These God Kings had lived for countless years and had long used up their chances to swallow it. However, Lin Jun still had it. This was not a 20% or 40% increase, but an 80% increase. After swallowing the sovereign's elixir, Lin Zhen's god power increased by 80%. From 14 million, it soared to more than 20 million, instantly suppressing the Lord of Hatred. It's useless. You can't dodge it even if you swallow it. I can't dodge it and neither can you. Since you dared to come, you must be prepared to die. The Lord of Hatred wanted to retract his long tentacles, but Lin Zhen held onto his tentacles tightly. Using his god power to suppress him, he did not let him leave. The Lord of Hatred's flames engulfed Lin Zhen's body. On Lin Zhen's side, thunder and lightning surged, constantly paralyzing him. The two of them were in a deadlock in the air. On the other hand, Lusman's eyes lit up. Instead, he mustered all his strength and smashed down. The huge war hammer fell from the sky and slammed into the bodies of Lin Zhen and Lin Feng. It was as if a nuclear bomb had exploded in the depths of the Earth's core. The explosive force even spread to the ground, causing a huge bump to appear on the ground. Then it collapsed. The 7 god kings were sent flying by the shockwave, leaving behind the huge crater from the explosion. The surrounding thick earth chi rolled and surged, quickly covering the crater. There were no signs of life here. Lusman's attack shocked Emperor Sky and the others. You killed the Lord of Hatred as well? Lusman's expression was ferocious. What else do you want me to do? Do I have any other choice? Emperor Sky shook his head. Killing the Lord of Hatred in the abyss is too big of a crime. If word gets out, everyone will be in danger. The other Abyss Masters probably already know about the Lord of Hatred's death and are on their way here. They can teleport here quickly through the earth veins. We might be killed. Lusman also wanted the two of them to deal with it together. This way, there would be one less person to share the wealth, and they would have more. But now, it seemed that the aftereffects of this matter were not small. Then what should we do? It's already at this stage. Just as the few of them were panicking, 9th Ghost King suddenly shouted, "Not good, there's someone here who didn't die." Amid the thick earth chi, there was still life coming from inside. The few of them did not know if it was Lin Zhen or someone else, but no matter who survived, it was not something to be happy about. Lin Zhen was an enemy. If it was the Lord of Hatred, he would definitely take revenge on these people. At this moment they recalled a saying. The Lord of Hatred had said that he could not be killed in the abyss. Moreover, in the previous attack, Ghostface King and the Lord of Hatred shared the damage. It was really possible that someone had survived. Now, it seemed that the Lord of Hatred was the most likely. Lusman and the others had temporarily used their combined attack. Against the Lord of Hatred, it would be very dangerous. At this moment, Lusman's expression changed a few times, and he said decisively, "Since that's the case, we might as well go all the way. No matter who is down there, we'll treat him as Ghostface King and suppress him." Suppress? How? Emperor Sky was stunned. Lusman raised his hand, and his 5-colored sacred mountain appeared. This sacred mountain was refined into a small mountain peak by gathering the weight of an entire galaxy. The earth chi here is dense. If we place the mountain here, even a pseudo-dominator can forget about escaping. Chapter 1254. Lusman's suggestion was met with everyone's approval. Right now, they were all in the same boat. They couldn't run away. Once the other lords of the deep caves arrived, everyone present would be held responsible. If the other party started a massacre, no one would be able to escape. Rather than that, they might as well sacrifice the 5-colored sacred mountain and seal the person below. Even if the lords of the deep caves arrived, they would still be able to find excuses. If the person below wasn't the lords of the deep caves, but Ghostface King, then Ghostface King would probably be suppressed under the mountain forever, unable to escape. They had reached the end of the deep caves. Even Ghostface King wouldn't be able to escape through the ground. If he wanted to escape through the ground, could he support the weight of a galaxy? That would be a joke. Apart from the sovereigns, no one would be able to do that. Therefore, no matter what, the sacred mountain had to be suppressed. Under everyone's gaze, the 4 of the 8 great hammers raised the 5-colored sacred mountain and brought it down from the sky. As it descended, the 5-colored sacred mountain grew larger and larger. In the end, it became a mountain peak the size of the Qinghai Tibet Plateau and pressed down heavily on the ground. However, after the sacred mountain pressed down, they could still clearly feel waves of throbbing coming from below. It was as if the person being suppressed was extremely unwilling and wanted to escape. They were all inexplicably shocked. Lussman frowned. This is simply too terrifying. The person below has such a strong will to live. He wants to escape being suppressed by a galaxy. If he escapes, it will be disastrous. Zhang Huang added, "No, we can't let him escape. Everyone, do you have any other methods to suppress him? Let's just seal this place forever." Emperor Sky and the others looked at each other, momentarily speechless. Lussman and the others had used all their strength. Not only had they used their strongest attack, but they had even used the sovereign's sacred mountain to suppress him. They couldn't let the other party use any more trump cards. However, if they wanted to continue suppressing him on the sacred mountain, ordinary things wouldn't work. The best thing would be a domain-type weapon. They could continue suppressing him with their domain-type power and completely seal this place so that he would never be able to escape. Huang Tian, Nine Ghost King, and Godtree King looked at each other. Under the pressure of Lussman and the others, they had no choice but to bleed. The 3 of them almost went bankrupt and exchanged for a treasure in the clan. This was an upper-grade comprehension armament, Gravity River. The attribute of this domain equipment was extremely compatible with the 5-colored sacred mountain. Both of them were of the gravitational type. It could completely combine the gravitational force of the River of Gravity with the 5-colored sacred mountain. When the Gravity River was exchanged through Imperial Sky and landed on the 5-colored sacred mountain, the weight of the sacred mountain seemed to have doubled. It went from the size of the Tibetan Plateau to the size of Mount Tai. However, its weight and mass were 5 times greater than before. Looking at the sacred mountain, Huang Tian couldn't help but sigh. The combined might of the 5-colored sacred mountain and the Gravity River is almost comparable to a supreme-grade domain equipment. Such a treasure is really rare. It's a pity that it has become a suppressive treasure. Lussman patted Huang Tian's shoulder and said, "Don't worry about these worldly possessions. We, the 8 great hammers, have also suffered heavy losses this time. We lost the 5-colored sacred mountain and the flying palace. You should at least compensate us for these things." Nine Ghost King and Godtree King also expressed their difficulties. Huang Tian smiled bitterly. "Everyone, give me some time. Let's go our separate ways first. As long as the Deep Caves Masters don't come looking for us this time, I'll definitely slowly compensate you for your losses. Don't worry, even if I'm not here, there's still my ancestor, the ruler of the clear skies. These things are nothing to him." Hearing Huang Tian mention the ruler of the clear skies, the others couldn't force him anymore. They could only hold their noses and bear with it for now, hoping that Huang Tian would really compensate them for their losses in the future. After repeatedly confirming that the 5-colored sacred mountain had reached an unshakable state, the few of them left the end of the underground palace with fear and trepidation. They could only hope that the Deep Caves Masters wouldn't come looking for them, which would allow them to avoid disaster. The Deep Caves Masters really didn't come looking for them, which made them gradually relax. It seemed that the one living in the Deep Caves was the Hatred Master. Otherwise, the other Deep Caves Masters would have come long ago. Although this matter might have been a misunderstanding, the sacred mountain had already been established. It was basically unchangeable. Everyone could only accept this fact. Although they didn't get Ghostface King's treasure, they finally got rid of a big problem. It was worth it. The Monarch clan even looked into the Ghostface King and the Hatred Master's dimensional universe, but they couldn't find any information about them. They didn't know whether they were dead or alive. Helpless, they could only wait patiently. Time passed bit by bit. 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. These god-kings with endless lifespans gradually forgot about what happened here. Only Huang Tian made a promise with them. A promise of 2,000 years. During this time, everyone stayed on the demonic planet to cultivate and wait for the situation to develop. If there weren't any changes in this place within 2,000 years, then they would be sure to be safe. When that time came, Huang Tian would hold a big banquet to celebrate and take revenge on the Bai family for betraying them. Between Ghostface King and the Monarch clan, the Bai family had actually chosen Ghostface King. When the time was right, Huang Tian swore to make the Bai family pay the price. Before that, everyone had to keep a low profile and make sure they were safe before taking action. This upheaval was gradually forgotten by the people. This was because very few people knew what happened in the end during the battle in the depths of the underground palace. Ghostface King, who had monopolized the 9 God Kings, disappeared from everyone's sight. He disappeared without a trace, as if he had never appeared. The Bai family and the Monarch clan, who were involved, also lived in seclusion after that and didn't mention this matter again. Only the Monarch clan would frequently send a few absolutely trustworthy people to guard the sacred mountain and make sure every change under the sacred mountain. Of course, this kind of job couldn't be done by Huang Tian. Qing Tian and the Zhu Tian were the best candidates for this job. This was especially true for the Zhu Tian. He hated Lin Zhen to the core and practically volunteered to guard the sacred mountain. In the end, he even set up a trap and claimed that he would only leave after confirming Ghostface King's death. Huang Tian could understand how the Zhu Tian felt. Since he was willing to take the initiative to guard the sacred mountain, then let him do it. In Huang Tian's opinion, there was no one more reliable than the Zhu Tian. Days passed just like that. The Zhu Tian stayed in the depths of the underground palace to guard the sacred mountain and became a mountain guard. The others stayed on the demonic planet to cultivate and wait for the 2,000 years to come. Chapter 1255. With the passage of time, the 5-colored sacred mountain was gradually covered in dust. Only dust could land on it. The density of the sacred mountain was so great that no plants could take root and sprout here. Even a little bit of moss could not appear on the sacred mountain. In the gloomy underground abyss, there was only thick earth energy that permeated the air, making the sacred mountain even more stable. On the sacred mountain, a special domain armament had already fused with it. The gravity domain armament and the sacred mountain had been fused with the earth energy for many years. It was difficult to distinguish them from each other, forming a super powerful domain armament. Unfortunately, this domain armament had lost its owner. Neither Lussman nor Imperial Sky could take this domain armament for themselves. They no longer had the ability to do so. If there was any life under the sacred mountain, it would be in eternal slumber there. At the bottom of the sacred mountain, this place was connected to the eternal frozen earth of the underground abyss. There were almost no gaps in the density. However, there was a little light of life under the sacred mountain that persisted unyieldingly. This was Lin Zhen, the once all-powerful Ghostface King who had been crushed miserably under the sacred mountain. Lin Zhen was not dead. There were many reasons why he was still alive. First of all, Lin Zhen's powerful defense had helped him withstand this calamity. Apart from his defense, there was another extremely important reason. When he had received the 8 hammer attacks and was suppressed by the sacred mountain, there had been another person who had helped him share the damage. That person was the Hatred Master. As the saying went, if the sky fell, there would be a tall person to hold it up. This tall person could be understood as being tall or having great power. The Hatred Master was held back by Lin Zhen and could not leave. Because he was more powerful, the Hatred Master had been under the greatest pressure when he was attacked by the sacred mountain. This had saved Lin Zhen's life. His body had basically shattered under such heavy pressure, but his soul had held on because of this. The mixed yuan armor was worthy of being called a top-grade armor. Although it was deformed under the pressure of the mountain, it still left a small gap for Lin Jun so that his body wouldn't shatter completely. There was still some flesh left inside the armor. But because of the great pressure between God Mountain and the ground, Lin Jun's body couldn't recover in this narrow space. So, Lin Jun was basically a soul now. At least, his body couldn't recover yet. When the divine mountain first began to suppress it, the Lord of Hatred by Lin Jun's side had fiercely resisted. As the saying went, the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. The Lord of Hatred appeared with full confidence, thinking that he could take advantage of the situation. Unfortunately, he was tricked by Lin Jun and was completely trapped here. He was indignant. He still had the ability to resist, but in the end, he didn't expect Emperor Sky and the others to add in another high-grade domain equipment. The weight of the divine mountain, which was comparable to a star system, increased by a few times, crushing the Hate Lord who was trying hard to resist. His body had been completely shattered. Right beside Lin Jun, there was only a little bit of blood flowing. The space here was only enough to hold a little bit of blood. The Lord of Hatred was like that, and so was Lin Jun. Both of them didn't die, but they couldn't really revive. They could only exist in the form of blood. They didn't like each other, but they couldn't do anything to each other. Lin Jun swallowed the ruler's elixir. There was a period of weakness, but now that his body couldn't recover, it didn't matter whether he was weak or not. At the very beginning of entering the bottom of God Mountain, the Lord of Hatred mocked Lin Jun with all his might. Little B** starred, how was it? Did you waste your effort? Did you think that swallowing the ruler's elixir could kill me? But I still survived. Now you're just a drop of blood. What can you do to me? Lin Jun snorted in the face of the Lord of Hatred's mockery. How ridiculous! You're nothing more than a drop of liquid, and you're still in the mood to laugh at me? You thought you were strong enough to rush out, but in the end, you were still dragged by me to be a cushion even when you had the upper hand. I can't get out, but can you? If I were you, I'd just throw myself against my own wall and evaporate, so as not to live and embarrass myself. The proud and arrogant Lord of Hatred was furious. You're really looking for death. At this point, you're still talking nonsense with me. When the other Lords of the Abyss arrive, it'll be the time for me to get out. At that time... Okay, stop daydreaming. If I'm not wrong, the other Lords of the Abyss won't be able to sense it unless you're really dead. Now that you're still alive in the form of a little tadpole, they won't be able to sense it. Birds don't shit here, and the dimensional universe can't receive radio wave. You can just prepare to enjoy the scenery here for 100 trillion years. The Lord of Hatred was not a fool. Of course, he could understand what the little tadpole meant. His poisonous tongue toward Lin Jun made him seethe with anger. You're a god king, after all. Don't you think it's a disgrace to say such things? Haha. What a coincidence. I might as well tell you that I'm actually just a middle god. I haven't even reached the level of a higher god, let alone a god king. How's that? Is it a surprise that a middle god like me, who's almost a middle god, managed to bring you to this extent? Are you happy? Are you surprised? Hearing Lin Jun's words, the Lord of Hatred was stunned for a moment, and then he flew into a rage. If he had fought with a powerful god king to this extent, he would have accepted it. However, he was actually almost killed by a middle god. How could the Lord of Hatred accept this? He roared and wanted to scold Lin Jun. Although his strength was much higher than Lin Jun's, when it came to scolding people, even 10 Lords of Hatred were not a match for Lin Jun. Having been baptized by 5,000 years of civilization and being reborn, Lin Jun's mastery of language and civilization was far from what the Lord of Hatred, who had lived in the underground abyss all day and had not even seen much sunlight, could compare with. When Lin Jun was alive in his previous life, he was bored. He had seen something called a microphone. He had a good memory, and he could talk about those things for 3 days and 3 nights without repeating a single sentence. Anyway, he had nothing to do now. When Lin Zhen had nothing to do, he would scold the Lord of Hatred wildly. The Lord of Hatred could understand some of the words, but he could not quite understand some of them. However, after living for so many years, his ability to understand was still pretty good. He could definitely understand that Lin Zhen was scolding him. He wanted to fight back, but his poor language library could not organize any decent words at all. Often, when he was scolded by Lin Zhen until his face was red and his neck was thick, he could not help but understand the meaning of Lin Zhen's words. After understanding, he felt a burst of anger. Of course, it was an anger that was useless. The communication between the two of them was a communication of spiritual power. The sun, moon, and stars rings above Lin Zhen's head were almost embedded in the soil. Lin Zhen could still use the power of this spiritual power to continue scolding him. The Lord of Hatred's spiritual power was not stronger than Lin Zhen's. Every day, Lin Zhen's words echoed in his spiritual sea like a fly, almost driving him crazy. There was no possibility for him to cultivate at all. In the end, he simply sealed off his spiritual sea. He would rather be a silent person than communicate with Lin Zhen, not even a single word. No one came to his rescue. He was almost desperate. He could only wait here for the day when he could see the light of day again. At that time, he swore that he would stay far away from this scolding person and never see him again. After finally dealing with the Lord of Hatred completely, Lin Zhen did not sit still and wait for death. Chapter 1256. Lin Zhen could only move within the cracks of the deformed primordial armor. Although he was unable to restore his body for the time being, he could still cultivate. Of course, this was not normal cultivation, but comprehension. The strongest earth chi was here, allowing Lin Zhen to comprehend the earth element. Among the 8 elements, Lin Zhen's earth element was the weakest. He had almost never comprehended it. This time, Lin Zhen wanted to make up for this skill. Earth, the last of the 5 elements. I've seen many martial artists cultivate various elements, but there aren't many who cultivate the earth element. Because the earth element's speed is inferior to wind, thunder, and lightning, and its killing power is inferior to metal and fire. It can be said to be the least popular element. However, the earth element has the strongest neutralizing power. Earth can give birth to metal. It can give birth to wood. It can block water. It can extinguish fire. In the later stages, the power of the earth element is also very strong. For example, the 5-colored divine mountain above my head. Lin Zhen used his spiritual force to investigate the divine mountain, but he couldn't see more than a foot away. The density of the divine mountain was simply unimaginable. It was almost comparable to the density of neutrons in a black hole. This was a pure collection of earth element. Because the essence of a planet was earth, even if there were vast and mighty oceans on the planet, those oceans were only a small part of the planet. All sorts of matter floated in the universe. Dark matter occupied 70% of it. If all of this matter was gathered together, then the final form that would be revealed would be Earth. Lin Zhen had never cultivated such a heavy element before. In the past, his cultivation process was always packed. This time, he finally had time. However, Lin Zhen did not immediately begin comprehending the earth element. The first thing he did was to challenge the sky-piercing platform. His sky-piercing platform had already reached the 31st level. There were only 3 more levels to go. Lin Zhen wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to finish everything in one go. As soon as he said he would do it, the Lord of Hatred seemed to enter a deep slumber. Lin Zhen began this great undertaking. Time deceleration began. In the small space around Lin Zhen, time rapidly decelerated. It took Lin Zhen 100 years to reach the 31st level. Under the deceleration, Lin Zhen's 100 years was equivalent to 1,440 years. After Lin Zhen had broken through, he had forgotten where he was when he woke up. He tried his best to recall for a while before he finally figured it out. After this layer, Lin Zhen's dark matter elements were still insufficient to condense another avatar. Only after completing the 32nd layer would he be able to continue condensing. Lin Zhen had just woken up, so he didn't have time to sigh with emotion. Very quickly, he threw himself into the next cultivation process. On the 32nd level, the difficulty suddenly increased. This time, Lin Zhen had used a full 300 years. 300 years was equivalent to more than 4,000 years, which was almost comparable to the history of Chinese civilization. It had passed in Lin Zhen's cultivation. Still, the rewards were generous as well. This floor had increased each of his 4 dark matter attributes by 70 points. In addition to what he had gained on the 31st floor, Lin Zhen could already form his next divine clone. In this dark underground, the feeling of loneliness invaded him again and again. After continuously cultivating for 5,000 years, even Lin Zhen was a little tired. However, his steel-like willpower kept him from stopping. This sacred mountain seemed to be difficult to open with external forces. He might as well cultivate to the end. The intense cultivation began once again. Lin Zhen charged towards the final level. The sky connecting platforms diagram was so complex that it could no longer be described with words. The calculation method there was so complex that even a supercomputer could easily cause it to crash. Even with Lin Zhen's current brain domain, he had failed time and time again. After countless failures, he had to start all over again. If it weren't for the help of the universe's origin energy in his body, as well as his talent that far surpassed anyone else's, it would have been impossible for him to succeed on this level. Even so, Lin Zhen had still spent 1,000 years on this level. 1,000 years. That was more than 14,000 years. Adding the time Lin Zhen had spent cultivating, he had already spent 20,000 years underground. The long baptism of time finally brought about his final accomplishment. After passing the 33rd floor of the sky connecting platform, Lin Zhen's 4 dark matter attributes each increased by 80 points. Finally, he could form his 2 divine clones. But according to the records of Soul Guardian's book, after passing the 33rd floor, one's willpower potential would be at the ruler level. That was the limit. But after passing the 33rd floor, Lin Zhen discovered that this book actually had a 34th floor. The 34th floor was a turbulent, chaotic world. It was boundless. The 34th floor's requirement was to use your willpower to find the exit of the chaotic world. Within the chaotic world, illusory doors of light would appear from time to time. But every time Lin Zhen rushed over, the doors of light would disappear. He had never been able to find the exit. Once he found the exit, his 4 dark matter attributes would increase by 100 points. But Lin Zhen could already form all of his divine clones. He didn't know what the point of continuing to increase his dark matter attributes was. In the end, Lin Zhen temporarily stopped cultivating Soul Guardian. Perhaps one day, when he had nothing else to do, he would come back and continue comprehending this unknown 34th floor of the sky connecting platform. But now wasn't the time. This thing might not be able to find the exit in 10,000 years, or even 1,000,000 years. Lin Zhen couldn't waste time like this, because the deadline that lonely star-fishing old man had given him was 3,000 years. Within 3,000 years, he had to leave this place and become a god king. Almost 2,000 years had passed. Temporarily stopping his cultivation of Soul Guardian, Lin Zhen's focus returned to reality. In the past 1,000 years, the constant invasion of the earth energy at the foot of the mountain actually had a huge benefit. That was, Lin Zhen had a great adaptation to the earth energy. From being completely ignorant to being extremely proficient now, this process had unknowingly been completed. Lin Zhen was no longer someone who didn't know anything about the earth element. If he wanted to comprehend it now, he wouldn't dare say that it would be easy, but at least it wouldn't be too difficult. Without further ado, Lin Zhen began a new round of comprehension. Earth. It's nothing more than a solid phase, a liquid phase, and a gas phase. It's made up of the solid earth, water, and air. But under this sacred mountain, the amount of liquid and gas is almost negligible. I can directly point to the core of the earth element and comprehend it. His mental power permeated the sacred mountain. At first, it could only penetrate a foot. Lin Zhen could gradually reach a meter. But Lin Zhen encountered another problem. The density of the soil in the sacred mountain was too high. Comprehending it wasn't easy. What he thought could be done in a few decades actually dragged on for another 500 years. Chapter 12:57. After an unknown number of years, the Lord of Hatred woke up from his slumber. When he woke up, he saw a scene that shocked him. This was because in front of Lin Zhen's drop of blood, the earth chi was moving without any wind. The earth chi was being manipulated by Lin Zhen. When the Lord of Hatred saw this scene, his jaw dropped. This was because only someone who had grasped the true essence of the earth element could do this. As the Lord of the underground city, the Lord of Hatred was naturally proficient in the true essence of the earth element. He could also control the earth chi. However, in the Lord of Hatred's eyes, this was useless. So what if he was proficient? He would still be suppressed under this sacred mountain and would never be able to rise again. Therefore, when he saw that Lin Zhen could still control the earth element here, he was impressed and mocked. Obviously, he had forgotten what had happened a long time ago. He could not help but say, "Kid, you'd better save your energy. So what if you can control the earth element? This sacred mountain fits perfectly from top to bottom, and its density is countless times greater than that of steel. It is obviously strengthened by a domain equipment. After so many years of assimilation with the earth chi, it has long become a top-grade domain equipment. Not only does the earth element exist, but even if you can control it, you can't get out." This time, Lin Zhen did not immediately scold the Lord of Hatred. Instead, he replied, "Then, what do you think is possible to get out?" The Lord of Hatred sneered. "There are two possibilities. The first is to rely on a powerful external force to shake this sacred mountain. I'm afraid that ordinary quasi-dominators can't do it. At least, none of us, the Lords of the Abyss, can do it. It should be possible for a dominator to take action personally." "What's the second possibility?" Lin Zhen continued to ask. "The second possibility is even more unreliable. That is to rely on one's own power to shake it from the inside. However, if we had such power, would we still be suppressed under the sacred mountain?" Lin Zhen thought for a moment. "According to what you said, a dominator can definitely shake it, but ordinary quasi-dominators can't do it. But what if it's a peak quasi-dominator? Or what level of divine power does it need to be possible?" The Lord of Hatred was stunned for a moment, then carefully thought about it. It's also possible that you're the strongest pseudo-sovereign. You should know that to become a divine king, the entry level of divine power is 3 million. If your divine power is lower than this, you're not a true divine king. For example, you. However, after becoming a god king, there won't be much of a difference in one's divine power. What determines one's battle prowess is the maximum amount of divine power that can be unleashed. When one's divine power reaches 6 million, one can be considered a quasi-ruler. Our Lord of the Abyss's eldest brother, the Lord of Terror, has over 7 million god power points. When he unleashes his full potential, he has over 25 million god power points. Even so, I don't think there's much hope for him to shake this mountain. The Lord of Hatred seemed to be a little depressed. Especially from the inside. If we don't move a little bit and make space for the divine body to recover, I'm afraid there's no hope at all. But how can we make the divine mountain shake? There's no such power, unless it's a sovereign. Through the mouth of the Lord of Hatred, Lin Zhen also learned more about the situation. It seemed as though there was no hope for the divine mountain to be shaken, but Lin Zhen wasn't depressed at all. Now that he had finally comprehended the true essence of the earth element, Lin Zhen could already continue to condense his next divine clone. After the Lord of Hatred finished speaking, he couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Lin Jun. He continued to fall into a deep slumber. At this point, he was just a drop of liquid. If he didn't sleep, there didn't seem to be much to do. His slumber was perfect. Lin Jun began to borrow the earth energy here to condense his divine clones. The earth energy here was dense. It was a good place to condense a divine clone. Roughly a day later, Lin Jun's earth-type divine clone appeared. It had dark skin, and its facial features were exactly the same as Lin Jun's. After bowing deeply to Lin Jun, it also entered the divine realm. After entering the divine realm, he found the earth-type azure lotus leaf and took up residence on it. At this point, within Lin Jun's body, of the 8 leaves of the primal chaos azure lotus, 7 of them had been completely activated. 6 divine clones resided within them. His water-type divine clone was currently in the primordial realm. He hadn't comprehended the fire element yet, but the others were all gathered together. The appearance of his earth-type divine clone caused Lin Jun's strength to increase by another step. First of all, his divine clone had increased by 650,000 units of divine power. Next was the primal chaos azure lotus. It reduced Lin Jun's divine power wastage, increasing it to 80%. This was an extremely shocking number. As long as Lin Jun condensed his fire divine clone and had his water-type divine clone return, his divine power wastage would reach 100%. This meant that every bit of divine power would be put to the greatest use. And in the center of the primal chaos azure lotus, that lotus seed had also been injected with earth-type energy. It became even more plump and sparkling, as if something could be born at any time. The increase in strength gave Lin Jun an idea. He wanted to test if he could shake this divine mountain. Lin Jun's divine power was 11 million. Adding on the 6 divine clones he currently had, it directly soared to 601 million. He activated his godly domain, increasing it by 80%. Another 8 million. Adding on the 80% wastage reduction, Lin Jun's divine power was equivalent to 4 million. Gathering all of his power, Lin Jun sent out a wave of energy towards the divine mountain. But the result was extremely disappointing for Lin Jun. The divine mountain actually didn't show any signs of moving. Damn it. After this divine mountain is strengthened, it's equivalent to 4 or 5 galaxies. My power is still not enough. Lin Jun's actions startled the Loathing Lord, who had just fallen into a deep slumber. Seeing Lin Jun's actions, the Loathing Lord seemed to have found something fun and began to mercilessly mock Lin Jun without the slightest scruple. Ha ha! You're simply an idiot. I already told you that if you want to move this divine mountain, you need to have the power of a peak pseudo-dominator. You've only comprehended a bit of power, and you're already overestimating yourself. You're simply making me laugh to death. I've never seen someone as stupid as you, ha 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 ha. If the Loathing Lord still had a body, it would definitely be convulsing with laughter. Looking at the drop of liquid from the Loathing Lord, Lin Jun felt a sense of loathing. I still lack the power of the fire element. If I have the fire element, I might be able to move the divine mountain. It would be great if there was a fire source for cultivation. Lin Jun thought. Suddenly, his gaze fell on the Loathing Lord. He clearly remembered that the Loathing Lord had grasped the fire element talent. If he could devour it, then with Lin Jun's own understanding of the fire element, he might be able to grasp the true essence of the fire element in a spurt of energy. Immediately, Lin Jun's heart became excited. His black hole could send out a small black hole. He didn't have to transform into a black hole beast to use devouring. The only problem now was that he needed a bit of space to send out a small black hole and get rid of this hateful drop of liquid. Chapter 1258. The God King's senses were very sharp. The Lord of Hatred could clearly feel that this malice came from Lin Jun. In fact, when he was first suppressed under the mountain, the Lord of Hatred wanted to kill Lin Jun at any time. Both of them were full of malice. However, as the years passed, almost 2,000 years had passed. That little bit of willpower from the beginning had long been worn out. The Lord of Hatred even felt that he might be suppressed here forever. Instead of that, it was better to have someone like Lin Jun who could talk to him. Otherwise, if he was alone for too long, he might really go crazy. However, he did not expect that Lin Jun would still want to kill him at this time. It was simply unforgivable. Devil Mask King, you should save it. You can't even recover your body here. What can you do to me? Do you want to drown me with that little bit of liquid of yours? Ha ha. Don't think too much. Lin Jun ignored the Lord of Hatred's long-winded words. He was trying to figure out how to move the divine mountain a little. It was impossible to rely on his own strength. Even his combat armor was useless at this time. The weight of this divine mountain was simply incalculable. For example, it was difficult to calculate the weight of the Himalayas. What about the Tibetan Plateau? What about the entire Earth? What about the entire solar system? What about the entire Milky Way? One should know that there were not only planets in the galaxy. There were also meteorites, asteroid belts, and ubiquitous dark matter. Who could calculate the weight of a Milky Way with a diameter of 100,000 light-years? Moreover, the weight of this divine mountain was the sum of the weight of several Milky Ways. It could almost be described as infinitely heavy. How could it be moved so easily? Just when Lin Jun was at his wit's end, he suddenly saw the lotus seed on the chaos green lotus. The lotus seed of the green lotus emitted a glimmer of light as if it was about to break away from the green lotus. Lin Jun's mind moved. The green lotus seed automatically broke away and landed beside Lin Jun, which was also beside the drop of blood. After landing, the green lotus seed quickly took root in the indestructible soil. With his sharp mental power, Lin Jun could even clearly feel the rapid growth of the green lotus here, and then break out of the ground. A small lotus flower, no, it was just a green plant with no name, appeared at the foot of the divine mountain. It was so small and weak, yet it possessed unimaginable power. A single leaf of the plant stretched its waist, forcibly prying open a tiny gap in this immeasurably heavy divine mountain. Although the gap was very small, it was enough for Lin Jun. My chaotic green lotus, thank you. You've helped me a lot. With the help of this small gap, Lin Jun sent out a miniature black hole. The target was the blood and soul of the Lord of Hatred beside him. Hate King also noticed the slight changes in God Mountain, but he did not have time to do anything. Such a short time was not enough for him to recover his body. He screamed and fell into Lin Jun's black hole. Ghostface King, you will die of loneliness. Before he could finish his sentence, his soul had already disappeared completely into the black hole. Lin Jun's green lotus seed also quickly withdrew at this time. It turned back into a lotus seed and returned to the chaotic green lotus. The light had dimmed considerably. Clearly, prying open the divine mountain just now had consumed a lot of its energy. Lin Jun's heart ached. He hurriedly mobilized the power of the God world and replenished the chaotic green lotus with various elements. For the time being, he could not use the power of the green lotus again. After absorbing the soul of the Lord of Hatred, a large amount of memories came whizzing in. Lin Jun was already familiar with this soul-searching method. He easily cast aside all the useless memories and only absorbed the essence of the other party's memories. As the Lord of the Abyss, many of the Lord of Hatred's memories were not of much use to Lin Jun. After all, he was not of the same race as Lin Jun, and their paths were different. Lin Jun could not learn his things. What Lin Jun needed was the Lord of Hatred's understanding of flames. When the Lord of Hatred died, his items from the God world disappeared as well. This was because the space here was not even enough for a God stone to appear. All the items were destroyed, but one thing was left behind. It was a green flame. It was the Lord of Hatred's ultimate flame power. Originally, there was still the power of the earth element. However, it automatically disappeared with the earth chi. Only this flame was left behind. What Lin Zhen needed was this thing. This thing, together with the Lord of Hatred's memories, was enough for him to comprehend the true essence of flames. Ha ha! I finally got it. I'm a fire Qilin. With this, it's enough for me to have an epiphany. Lin Zhen kept this flame in the God world. He released his mind power and began a new round of comprehension. In fact, among all the elemental powers that Lin Zhen had, the easiest to comprehend was the fire element. As he was a fire Qilin, his sensitivity and mastery of the fire element far surpassed that of other elements. However, due to a freak combination of factors, Lin Zhen actually only grasped the fire element at the last moment. One had to say that it was fate. In Lin Zhen's bloodline, there was even Little Phoenix, which was the blood of Feng Blue Luan. His flame power was the purest. And in this flame of the Lord of Hatred, there was actually death chi mixed in, so the flame appeared green. This kind of flame could be called Netherworld fire. The fire Qilin's fire, the fire Phoenix's fire, plus the Netherworld ghost fire, these three types of flame power merged in Lin Zhen's God world and sublimated. This time, the cultivation process lasted for a full 3 months. 3 months later, in Lin Zhen's God world, a flame that belonged to Lin Zhen was finally born. Yin Yang Ghost Fire. The fire Qilin was Yang, the fire Phoenix was Yin. In addition to the Lord of Hatred's Netherworld fire, this was a flame that had never been seen before. The flame's temperature was as high as hundreds of millions of degrees. Once contaminated, it was very difficult to get rid of. The true essence of flames was also understood the moment the Yin-Yang ghost fire was formed. After completing the cultivation of flame power, Lin Zhen did not stop at all. He immediately formed a fire divine avatar. This process was very fast. Borrowing the power of the newly born flame, the fire divine avatar was formed almost instantly. Greetings to this Lord. After the fire divine avatar was born, it immediately returned to the Chaos Green Lotus. When the fire divine avatar returned to the Green Lotus, the lotus seed gained another color. Currently, the Chaos Green Lotus had all 8 elements and 7 divine avatars gathered together. Only the water divine avatar had not arrived. Lin Zhen's heart stirred slightly. Come, my water divine avatar. Cross the boundaries of time and space and come to me. The water divine avatar was currently in the primordial realm's fallen star lake. If it wanted to come here, it would take at least 100 years. But Lin Zhen was not in a hurry. In these 100 years, he still had his own things to do. Chapter 1259. In the primordial realm's fallen star lake, Lin Zhen's divine water clone stood up. First, he found Lin Zhen's wife and family. After giving them some instructions, the divine water clone set off. Su Mingyue and Aning weren't too worried. The fact that the divine water clone was still around meant that Lin Zhen was still safe. As for what their husband wanted to do, they wouldn't interfere. Their husband had created miracles time and time again. There had never been any difficulty that could defeat him. They always believed that their husband would reach the peak one day. The divine water clone left Fallen Star Lake and set off for the demonic planet. Time passed slowly. It was almost time for the 2,000-year agreement with Emperor Sky. When the agreement was first made, many godly kings didn't care too much. They thought that Emperor Sky was doing something unnecessary. What could they do when they were suppressed by a divine mountain like that? What a joke. No matter who was suppressed below, they wouldn't be able to leave. 1,900 years had passed. Just as people were about to forget about this, someone came looking for them. The people who came were Abyss Masters. Not just one, but 7 Abyss Masters. There were a total of 9 Abyss Masters in the Abyss Country. Each of them was a powerful godly king. Among them, the Master of Fear, who was ranked first, even had the strength of a pseudo-ruler. The Abyss Masters could sense each other. The arrival of these Abyss Masters proved one thing: the Master of Hatred was dead. The Master of Hatred was ranked third. Apart from the Master of Fear, There was also the Master of Destruction. The Master of Destruction led the other 6 Abyss Masters and quickly found out the cause and effect of the matter. Emperor Sky and the other godly kings appeared at the Divine Mountain in the depths of the earth's core together with the 7 Abyss Masters. The Master of Destruction, who was covered in huge bone spikes like a monster, said in a muffled voice, "Just a few months ago, us brothers sensed the death of the Master of Hatred. According to what you said, he should have died under this Divine Mountain." Emperor Sky nodded. "That's right. However, the Master of Hatred's death can't be attributed to us. From what I know, Abyss Masters almost never die in the Abyss." Another Lord of Torture said, "That's right. All of us Lords of the Abyss are proficient in the use of the earth element. As long as we stay on the ground, we shouldn't die." "That's right. The Lord of Hatred must have died in the hands of the Ghostface King. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to commit suicide even if he wanted to. Our common enemy should be the Ghostface King, not fighting each other." Imperial Sky wasn't particularly afraid because the most powerful Lord of Fear hadn't arrived yet. Moreover, he had the ruler of Clear Skies standing behind him. He didn't believe that these Abyss Lords wouldn't consider it. The Lord of Destruction was also scratching his head. He wanted to avenge the Lord of Hatred, but they had already tried to do so, and they were unable to move the mountain at all. He couldn't vent his anger on Emperor Sky and the others either. He still had to give face to the ruler of Azure Skies, especially when the ruler of Trepidation wasn't around. "I heard you say that you've set a time limit of 2,000 years. Is it possible that the Ghostface King won't be able to come out by then?" Emperor Sky smiled and said, "Of course. The time limit of 2,000 years isn't nonsense. The Sacred Mountain and the Gravity Domain equipment will completely merge after 2,000 years and become an independent equipment. Moreover, it will be a top-grade domain equipment. When that time comes, no matter what life forms exist in it, they will completely perish." The Lord of Destruction nodded. If that was really the case, there wouldn't be any gaps in the equipment. Even an atom wouldn't be able to survive in it. In that case, it could be considered as revenge for the Lord of Hatred in disguise. "All right, in that case, we'll stay at your Monarch clan's place. As long as the time limit of 2,000 years is up and the Ghostface King doesn't appear, we'll have a good celebration." Emperor Sky knew that these Lords of the Abyss wanted to use this opportunity to wreak havoc on his family and vent their anger. However, such an outcome was already very good. Emperor Sky had already accepted his fate of losing money. After all, he still had the ruler of Clear Skies to support him. "Ju Tian, guard this place well. Don't let anyone come near. I have to go back and entertain the distinguished guest." The Ju Tian who stayed here immediately nodded in agreement. His eyes were still filled with hatred for Lin Jun. Emperor Sky left the task to the Ju Tian and returned to the underground city with peace of mind. The Ju Tian was the only guardian at the foot of the Sacred Mountain. In everyone's eyes, he was the most qualified guardian. As long as the time limit of 2,000 years was up, they would no longer have any worries. Not only would they be able to celebrate, but they would also be able to attack the Bai family and completely settle the grudge from back then. When that time came, the Bai family would be in trouble. Lin Jun's cultivation wasn't slow at all compared to when he had a body. He had been a pinnacle intermediate celestial for more than 2,000 years. In fact, if he wanted to, he could have crossed this boundary long ago and become a higher celestial. However, he had always strived for perfection, especially after the appearance of the primal chaos lotus. Lin Jun always felt that there was a flaw if he didn't gather all 8 divine clones. That was why he had delayed until now. Now that his divine clones had finished cultivating, Lin Jun's next step was to restore the green lotus seed to its peak condition. All he had to do was wait for his water divine clone to arrive. The recovery of the green lotus seed was quite slow. Lifting up the sacred mountain had consumed an incomparably large amount of energy. Replenishing this energy had taken Lin Zhen more than 90 years. During these 90 years, Lin Zhen had constantly been strengthening himself. His divine power had already reached an overflowing level. He was still waiting for his water divine clone to arrive. No one had expected that Lin Zhen would have such a clone. Even if he did, no one would care. The sacred mountain was unshakable. Even if they came, they wouldn't be able to do anything. What's more, the Ju Tian was at the base of the sacred mountain. This place had long ago been equipped with a complete alarm system. As long as something happened, the Ju Tian could easily notify the Imperial Sky Clan to come to their aid. It was under these seemingly foolproof circumstances that Lin Zhen's divine water clone traversed thousands of mountains and rivers. After nearly 100 years, it finally arrived at the Fiend Star's Kingdom of the Abyss, at the base of the sacred mountain. The divine water clone, with its graceful body, arrived at the depths of the earth. Here, it saw the Ju Tian who was guarding it. The Ju Tian, upon seeing Lin Zhen's divine water clone appear, didn't move for a long time. The clone didn't move either, waiting for the Ju Tian to react. After a while, the Ju Tian said, "I've already investigated. In the entire underground palace of the sacred mountain, aside from you and me, there isn't a third person here." The divine water clone smiled slightly. "Good. Since you've seen Master, shouldn't you give him a gift?" The Ju Tian suddenly fell to her knees. Ju Tian greets Master. In order to welcome Master's arrival, the Ju Tian has already prepared for 2,000 years. Today we finally have a great gift to present to Master. Chapter 1260. Then, what present have you prepared for me? Master, please take a look. The Ju Tian brought Lin Zhen to his own residence. Under his bed, there was a dark tunnel. Master, I used a metal shovel to dig out a centimeter of soil every day. It took me 2,000 years to dig this tunnel. It leads directly to the bottom of the divine mountain. It's less than half a meter away from where your main body is. Lin Zhen's eyes lit up. This kid was really something. Lin Zhen could understand how difficult it was to dig that tunnel. Especially towards the end, it would probably be hard to maintain even a centimeter a day. This brat had been digging for 2,000 years. Apart from people whose souls had been locked, no one else could achieve this kind of spirit. The ground is incomparably hard. How did you dig it? Your subordinate is proficient in metal and water elemental energy. I soaked it in water and tried my best to soften the structure of the soil. Then, I used metal tools to dig it out bit by bit. Lin Zhen nodded. Well done. Let's go in and take a look. The Ju Tian led the way in front, bringing Lin Zhen to the end of the tunnel. At this point, Lin Zhen could even sense the presence of his main body. The distance between him and his main body was definitely less than 20 centimeters. However, these 20 centimeters were the most difficult part. Otherwise, his main body wouldn't have been trapped here, unable to leave. The Ju Tian would have dug it out long ago. But now it was much easier. The water clone was outside and could work together with the main body. The clone stretched out its hand and felt the breathing of the main body. Then, a thick layer of water vapor began to seep into the soil. On the other side, a sharp metal energy condensed into a drill, drilling fiercely in the direction of the water vapor. No, it's still not enough. I need wood elemental energy. The metal energy in the main body turned into wood elemental energy. Although wood elemental energy wasn't as hard as metal energy, it was the nemesis of soil. Lin Zhen even took out a branch from the stellar fruit tree and used it to force it into the soil. His treasure-seeking vine, which had already entered the god realm, had also turned into an earthworm-like existence, cooperating with the stellar fruit tree to attack. With water at the bottom and force at the top, the 20 centimeters of hard soil was ultimately a tree without root. With the cooperation of the two, after 10 days, a small crack finally appeared. However, Lin Zhen didn't even have time to seize the opportunity the first time he opened the crack, and the soil closed automatically. Fortunately, he had experience. For the second time, Lin Jun finally cracked the soil a little after 5 days. Seizing this opportunity, his divine water avatar transformed into a line of water and plunged in. The water god went in, and the soil closed up again. The Ju Tian, on the other hand, was ordered to stand guard outside. If anything were to happen, they would try their best to react. Lin Jun's divine water clone had finally reunited with his main body. The divine water clone charged directly into the deity world, landing on top of the primal chaos green lotus petals. At this moment, the 8 petals of the chaotic green lotus began to undergo a shocking transformation. All the energy began to converge towards the center. At the very center, where the chaotic green lotus was, a chaotic energy circulation actually formed. This tiny point seemed to be the center of the universe. Within it was a chaotic energy flow, as if the heavens and earth were about to be split apart. Below the deity mountain, the endless earth energy seemed to be attracted by this energy flow. Like 100 rivers flowing to the sea, it madly converged towards this point. Lin Jun was right in the center of this turbulent energy flow. Receiving the endless earth energy replenishment, he felt as if the divine power in his body was about to break through. Streams of earth energy, under the transformation of the chaotic energy, began to transform into chaotic energy flows, which became the source of energy for Lin Jun's breakthrough. This dense earth energy can actually be used by me at this moment. Then, this earth energy helped me support this deity mountain. Lin Jun used the earth energy drawn by the chaotic green lotus to form a circular wall around him. The earth energy crazily gathered together. At first, it was just a tiny bit of energy flow. Then, it rapidly compressed, and compressed again. However, the density of the deity mountain was unimaginably great. For a moment, it still couldn't support it. Lin Jun discovered that where his water divine avatar had entered, there was a shallow hole that could allow him to activate the black hole. He immediately released the miniature black hole. Then, the earth energy entered the black hole and rapidly compressed inside, turning into the densest neutrons. Although the deity mountain's density was great, it was still a little lacking compared to neutrons. After the earth energy was compressed and reappeared, its density had already surpassed the deity mountain's. Countless neutrons began to stack and accumulate. Gradually, a short wall formed around Lin Jun. One by one, the neutrons passed. The short wall gradually rose. In the end, it was even high enough to sit a person. With this space, Lin Jun had room to display his abilities. Ha ha ha. After 2,000 years, this daddy's body can finally recover. When I'm about to break through, how can I do it without a body? Come out, the universe's most handsome Lin Jun. Lin Jun's mixed yuan armor had already recovered to its original state. The sun, moon, and stars rings above his head were also pulled out from the ground. The demon god's wings were folded. This drop of blood evolved in the mixed yuan armor and returned to its original form. After a moment, Lin Jun's body reappeared. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, the neutron wall around him supporting the deity mountain. Lin Jun spread his arms. Come, let me feel the power of the earth here. The chaos green lotus spun. The earth energy in the surroundings surged wildly again, gathering with Lin Jun as the core. This was the demonic planet. There was an almost endless amount of earth energy. This energy circled around the chaos green lotus and turned into chaos energy. It attacked Lin Jun's shaky doorstep from medium god to higher god. How could the doorstep that had already reached the brimming threshold withstand such a violent attack? Finally, it shattered. Lin Jun's condition was unprecedentedly good, and the bones all over his body let out a series of popping sounds. Ha ha ha! Higher God! I've finally reached it! The divine power in his body began to rise crazily. His divine power of 2.11 million had risen by hundreds of thousands in just a few seconds. 230, 240, 250. However, how could Lin Jun be satisfied with such a small increase? He did not need to spend much effort. Just the supply of the chaotic airflow was more than that. Every step he took was incomparably firm, and every step he took was perfect. The increase in divine power this time would definitely bring him a pleasant surprise. In the blink of an eye, Lin Jun's god power had exceeded 3 million. Chapter 1261. Lin Jun had experienced too many surges in his godly power, but none of them could compare to this. The foundation of a god's strength was the strength of his own godly power. Lin Jun could fight with other godly kings because he had many clones and could transfer his godly power. However, his own godly power wasn't that strong. At least, it hadn't reached the lowest standard of a godly king. This time, Lin Jun's godly power exceeded 3 million and became a godly king. However, at the same time, he also became a higher god. Higher god and godly king were two different realms, but he broke through at the same time. Hence, his godly power surged crazily. After 3 million, his godly power seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. Lin Jun did not seem to notice any signs of him slowing down. Very quickly, it had exceeded 4 million. Don't tell me it's more than 5 million? My previous increases were usually double. Looks like it's more than that this time. Without waiting for Lin Jun to consider, his godly power had exceeded 5 million. After 5 million, the speed of his godly power's increase slowed down, but it was still rising. 5,300,000, 5,500,000. When his godly power reached 5,800,000, Lin Jun was a little excited. Because when his godly power reached 6 million, he was no longer a godly king. He was a quasi-dominator. Of all the godly kings that Lin Jun had met, the strongest was the god of hatred. His godly power was only 5 million, but he was close to a quasi-dominator. Could it be that I can directly become a quasi-dominator? 6 million. Under Lin Jun's excitement, his godly power finally crossed the 6 million threshold. This was a memorable moment. Lin Jun broke through to higher god. He actually skipped the godly king stage and could be considered a quasi-dominator. At this moment, Lin Jun felt the universe's origin power in his body churning. It actually grew stronger. The universe's origin power was everywhere, but it couldn't be absorbed and used by humans. Now, the universe's origin power came from the earth chi in all directions. Lin Jun immediately understood that he had created a record in the entire universe. Becoming a pseudo-dominator right after breaking through to become a high god was something that had never happened before. After 6 million, he broke through to the pseudo-dominator rank. The speed at which his godly power increased further slowed down, finally stopping at 6.33 million. The surrounding earth chi calmed down and Lin Jun's realm also began to stabilize. This breakthrough actually doubled my divine power. Lin Jun used his spiritual power to look inside his body. The god world in his body was rapidly expanding during this breakthrough. Currently, the edge of the world was still not stable. It would take some time for it to stabilize. There were many other benefits that accompanied Lin Jun's breakthrough. The stellar fruit tree grew bigger and stronger, and the treasure-seeking vine followed Lin Jun to the heavens this time. Previously, the treasure-seeking vine was only a mid-level vine. This time, it had directly soared to the level of a pseudo-dominator. Its growth rate was so great that Lin Jun's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. The thick vine connected the heavens and the earth, and a dark golden metallic luster filled the air. At a glance, one could tell that it was unshakable. In front of the vine, there was a huge mouth that looked like a monster. There were countless fangs on it, and it had many functions. Lin Jun could even feel that the vine had the desire to come out. It probably wanted to try to shake the divine mountain. The treasure-seeking vine's range had also soared from 10,000 kilometers to 1,000,000 kilometers. It could practically cover any planet. Lin Zhen was very sure that this treasure-seeking vine alone was not something that any god king he had met before could resist. The other thing that Lin Zhen was most concerned about was the primal chaos green lotus. Seeing the primal chaos green lotus, Lin Zhen was greatly shocked. Because the 8 divine clones that had been resting on the green lotus leaf had all disappeared. Lin Zhen could clearly sense that the 8 divine clones had transformed into pure energy bodies and entered the green lotus seed. The green lotus seed had absorbed quite a bit of the universe's origin energy, and had also gathered the energy of the 8 divine clones. Its insides were incessantly stirring, as if something was about to be born. However, because the green lotus seed had used up a lot of energy before, its growth was a bit slower. It seemed that it still needed some time. But this didn't hinder Lin Zhen from transferring his divine power. He could still borrow the power of the 8 divine clones at any time. Previously, each divine clone's divine power was 650,000. Now, each divine clone's divine power had directly reached 1,000,000. The 8 divine clones had 8,000,000 divine power. Their divine power was actually higher than Lin Zhen's main bodies. At this point, Lin Zhen was very confident that he could get out of this predicament. The reason was none other than his divine power. 6,330,000 units of divine power. Adding that to the power of the 8 divine clones, that was a total of over 14,000,000. The domain of divinity could increase his divine power by 80%. That was over 25,000,000. In addition, the primal chaos green lotus had reduced Lin Zhen's divine power by 100%. His divine power had already reached 58,000,000. Of course, this was only a technique. It didn't equate to true divine power. Thus, Lin Zhen's current divine power was 79,000,000. Reaching the pseudo-dominator realm was practically the peak of cultivation. If one wanted to continue to become a dominator, they had to obtain a dominator's godly crystal. Refining a dominator's godly crystal and becoming a dominator wasn't something that could be achieved through cultivation alone. Lin Zhen had inherited many things from Dominator Whitebird, so he had some understanding of dominators. There were only 81 dominators' godly crystals in the entire universe. Every elemental element had 9, and there were also 9 dominators with special powers. Dominator Whitebird was one of those special dominators. There was no such thing as a dominator's divine power. Every dominator's godly crystal contained 50,000,000 divine power. In other words, after becoming a dominator, one's divine power was guaranteed to be 50,000,000. This was the source of the huge power gap between a dominator and a non-dominator. Thus, in the entire history of the universe, there had never been a case of a pseudo-dominator successfully challenging a dominator. 50,000,000 divine power, plus the original power of a pseudo-dominator, was the true divine power of a dominator. Before becoming a dominator, the strength of one's divine power determined the difference in power after becoming a dominator. However, in front of this enormous amount of divine power, the difference in power between dominators wasn't that great. If you had 80,000,000 divine power, I might have 7,500. There was still competition between them. If a pseudo-dominator wanted to ascend, they had to wait for a dominator to die and for a dominator's godly crystal to appear. Lin Zhen had just become a high god. For now, he didn't need to think about becoming a dominator. Right now, there was one last thing he needed to do. That was to cultivate the 6th stage of life genes, which was the mutated heaven behemoth gene concentrate. According to his calculations, he was 3 months away from 2,000 years in the Earth's core. Chapter 1262. Lin Zhen had gotten his hands on the heaven behemoth gene long ago. It was just that he hadn't become a superior god and hadn't had the chance to cultivate it. Now it was finally time. After becoming a god king, he would evolve into an energy body. The bigger his godly body was, the stronger he would be in the future. This process wasn't difficult. Especially when Lin Zhen's universe origin was getting stronger, it became easier to cultivate the gene. After consuming the gene concentrate, Lin Zhen spent more than 2 months and finally started to evolve his godly body. The godly body evolved from the main body. At this time, it could also reflect the advantages of the major races. The human race's body was weak to begin with. Even after many rounds of cultivation, they still didn't have much of an advantage. However, the astral beasts had a huge advantage in evolving their godly body. Especially Lin Zhen. He was a top-tier astral beast, the black hole beast. His body was huge to begin with. Using this opportunity to cultivate, his godly body finally started to condense. 2,000 years had passed. Lin Zhen finally completed the evolution of his genes and was ready to start. Back then, Lonely Star Fishing Old Man had said that he would be teleported away when he became a god king. However, there had been no news until now. Lin Zhen didn't know why, but it was a good thing that he wasn't teleported away. He still had things to do. At this time, he didn't know that the people outside were also waiting for the 2,000 years to come. The monarch race was very lively these few days. That was because the 2,000 years set by Old Master Huang Tian was almost up. The godly mountain was still majestic and unshakable. Their family was about to rise. Because of what happened 2,000 years ago, the monarch race had suffered humiliation. Now that they were about to be washed away, everyone was very excited. The night before the 2,000-year agreement, the monarch race was already decorated with lanterns and banners. It was even more lively than the new year. When the day came, everyone took a bath and changed their clothes. They were waiting for the time to come. Huang Tian wore a brocade robe and stood in front of the crowd. Behind him, the god kings who had stayed on the demonic planet had all arrived. The 7 Abyss Masters, 4 of the 8 Hammers, the Tree King, the 9 Ghost King, and the other god kings were all gathered here. Old Master, 2,000 years have passed. Emperor Sky's eyes lit up when he heard his subordinates report. Is there any news from the Ju Tian? Old Master, Ju Tian Young Master reports that everything is fine on the sacred mountain. That's good, ha ha ha. It's been 2,000 years. It's also time for our Emperor clan to wash away the shame. Emperor Sky turned around to face the divine kings. Everyone, there are a few people here who have witnessed the events that took place 2,000 years ago. During my grandson's Ju Tian's wedding, Ghost Mask King used his strength to bully the weak and forcefully snatched my grandson's wife away. Furthermore, the Bai family went back on their word and ignored our agreement. They distorted the truth and refused to acknowledge the betrothal gift from my Emperor clan, causing my family to suffer great humiliation. I believe everyone still remembers this incident. Everyone nodded in agreement. They all remembered that they had participated in the attack on Ghost Mask King. Later, Ghostface King was suppressed under the Divine Mountain. He even killed the Lord of Hatred and caused the Abyssal Lords to lose their brothers. We must avenge him. The Lord of Destruction pondered for a moment. Then how does Mr. Huang Tian plan to take revenge? The Divine Mountain can't be moved anymore. Actually, there's no need to fear Ghost Mask King anymore. Regardless of whether he's dead or alive, he won't be able to leave the Divine Mountain. When my old master returns, he'll definitely break open the mountain and capture him. His fate is sealed. Emperor Sky sneered. We're not talking about the half-dead Ghost Mask King now, we're talking about the Bai family. After saying that, his expression turned cold. Today, I'll return the Bai family's 9-tailed king 10 times, 100 times what she did to me. As far as I know, there are no other divine kings in the Bai family, only 9-tailed. Their formation has protected them for 2,000 years, and it's about to collapse. Today, we'll kill our way to the Bai family and make them pay with their blood. The people below cheered loudly. The Emperor clan had been waiting for this day for a long time. Everyone, let's set off for the Bai family now. After we've dealt with those reckless fellows, we'll hold the celebration party at the Bai family. The Emperor clan members were ready to set off. Before they set off, Emperor Sky even sent someone to inform the Ju Tian to hurry over. He wanted to capture Snow White and Bai Susu from the Bai family and bestow them to the Ju Tian as his concubines. Although the underground palace was very far from here, with the Abyss Lords around, they could activate the Abyss Teleportation Formation and send the Ju Tian over. Everything was arranged. The Emperor clan members set off in a grandiose manner. Today, these god kings were all honored guests. They rode a new flying palace together. This was a high-grade flying palace that was given to the Imperial Sky by the Azure Sky's ruler. Otherwise, it would be difficult for the monarch races to get their own flying palaces. The rest of the people came in free satellites, shield ships, and so on. The entire underground city was shaken by them. People came out to watch. Everyone in the underground city knew that the Emperor clan wanted to take revenge on the Bai family. Many people even set off for the Bai family in advance to find a favorable location to watch this grand event. Some people even started a live broadcast. The content was about the drastic changes in the Abyss Kingdom and the Emperor clan's attack on the Bai family. The City Defense Army had already evacuated this area under the Abyss Lord's orders. They were not to interfere with anything that happened here. No matter how one looked at it, the Bai family was in imminent danger in this battle. Meanwhile, the Bai family was also in a state of turmoil. Everyone felt a heavy pressure. These 2,000 years of peace did not allow the Bai family to truly relax. Everyone was waiting for these final days. Especially in the recent 100 years, some people with weak wills had already run away. They were no longer willing to wait for death in the Bai family. Those divine kings who were on good terms with the nine-tailed king in the past also stopped contacting her. They all bade her farewell and even deleted her as a friend in the dimensional universe. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. The Bai family was about to be finished. Especially when they heard that the Emperor clan was on the move today, many people in the Bai family ran away. Now, there were only a few hundred people in the huge mansion. This was absolutely unbelievable for a family controlled by a divine king. In the Bai family's hall, the nine-tailed king sat on a chair alone. Beside her were some Bai family members who had followed her for many years. Most of them were high gods. There were also a few quasi-divine kings. Looking at these people who had followed her for many years, the nine-tailed king felt a sense of sadness. After this calamity, she did not know how many of these people would be left. She did not regret her choice back then. She felt that Lin Zhen was definitely a super potential stock with a limitless future. However, she did not expect to be besieged by so many divine kings and be trapped under the divine mountain forever. She could not predict the future. In the end, she ended up like this. Taking a deep breath, the nine-tailed king was about to lead these people out to fight to the death when a servant came to report. "Master, the two ladies have come out of seclusion." Chapter 1263. Before the nine-tailed king could tell them to hide, the Snow White sisters had already walked in. Seeing Snow White and Bai Susu, the nine-tailed king was stunned. After not seeing them for 2,000 years, he thought that Snow White and Bai Susu's strength must have improved. However, in his opinion, the two ladies should have improved to peak higher gods or quasi-divine kings at most. However, he did not expect them to have already become divine kings. The nine-tailed king had heard that Snow White once occupied the throne of the Hall of Fame in the primordial realm. She had great potential, and Snow White's potential was not inferior to hers. However, he did not expect them to have improved to this extent. They had become divine kings. Although they were only early-stage divine kings and looked like they had just broken through, they were indeed divine kings. You. The nine-tailed king was speechless. "Old master, the rise and fall of the family now depends on this. We sisters can't stay out of this. We're willing to fight." The two sisters stood there. Between their brows, there seemed to be Lin Zhen's aura. The nine-tailed king understood something. They must have had intercourse on the day of their wedding. The two ladies must have assimilated Lin Zhen's bloodline power into their bodies. The nine-tailed king had guessed correctly this time. The reason why Snow White and Bai Susu were able to improve by leaps and bounds was indeed because they had assimilated Lin Zhen's bloodline. Especially under the influence of Bai Susu's assimilation power, the three of them slept together. They had made Lin Zhen a success and made them a success. After 2,000 years of hard work, they had broken through yesterday and became divine kings. The nine-tailed king sighed softly. If the two of you could have achieved this 2,000 years ago, there wouldn't be so many troublesome things. While he lamented, he still had to face what he had to face. Less than 10 minutes after the Bai sisters left, the Emperor tribe's fleet arrived. Emperor Sky's flying palace stopped in front of the Bai family's gate. He led a group of divine kings down from it. In front of him was the Bai family's protective formation. This formation had protected the Bai family for 2,000 years. Firstly, it was a good formation. Secondly, the Emperor tribe had not made up their mind to attack the Bai family. Standing there, Emperor Sky was in high spirits. Ha 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 ha. Old bastard Nine Tails, when you betrayed my Bai family, did you ever think that this day would come? The nine-tailed king glared coldly at Huang Tian through the formation. Huang Tian, from what happened today, I can tell that your monarch clan is nothing more than a bunch of vile, vengeful people. I don't regret the decision I made back then at all. No regrets? Then, where is the ghost mask king that you flattered back then? Who can save your Bai family from today's crisis? Devil Mask King Lin Zhen is definitely an unprecedented genius. I, Nine Tails, am confident in my judgment. You can trap him for a while, but you can't trap him forever. When he comes out, you'll be in for it. You're really stubborn. Since you're so stubborn, I won't waste words with you. I'll let your entire Bai clan be buried with you because of your stupidity. Let's see if you can still be so stubborn when the Bai clan's people die in front of you one by one. After Huang Tian finished speaking, he waved his hand to the people behind him. Men, break this tortoise shell of the Bai clan. It's been 2,000 years. They've been holed up here long enough. It's time to end it. With Huang Tian's order, the people from the monarch clan swarmed forward. Countless superior gods and quasi-god kings rushed forward and started attacking the Bai clan's protective formation with all their might. The yellow light barrier flickered under the attacks as if it could break at any time. At this point, the Bai clan didn't hold back anymore. They filled the formation with all their energy blocks, hoping that it could hold on for a while longer. No matter how strong a formation was, it still needed energy to maintain it. The Bai clan's energy blocks started to deplete rapidly under such attack. Soon, it was empty and the next batch of energy blocks was replenished. After attacking for 20 minutes, Huang Tian got impatient. The Bai clan is really something. So many people have been attacking for so long, but we still can't settle it. Everyone, I think we might need to take action. Lussman smiled. We're also working hard. After settling the Ghostface King, we still have to settle the Bai clan for you. Forget it. Tell the others to stop. Watch us, brothers. Huang Tian ordered everyone to stop. 4 of the 8 great hammers rose high into the air and used their killing moves once again. A huge hammer appeared in the air. Under the combined efforts of the 4 people, the hammer smashed down fiercely. This attack was indeed extraordinary. The Bai clan's formation shattered under this attack that was comparable to a Dominator's attack. The previously incomparably sturdy array formation had now turned into a bubble, dissipating in the air. Following the destruction of the formation, the Monarch clan members who had been eyeing the Bai clan covetously charged towards the Bai clan under Huang Tian's command. The Bai clan members also knew that the moment of life and death had arrived. Right now, they were thinking of killing as many as they could. The more they killed, the better. Huang Tian personally went into battle and found the nine-tailed king. Come, come, come. Old man, I've wanted to teach you a lesson for 2,000 years. Prepare to die today. The nine-tailed king also knew that she had to stop Huang Tian. Without another word, she went up. The two of them rose high into the air. They actually had a tacit understanding not to interfere with the battle below. Not to mention the battle between the two of them, the battle below had reached its climax in the first second. With so many high gods and quasi-god kings fighting, the battle scene was unimaginable. The energy turbulence was like a nuclear bomb that was constantly exploding. It completely enveloped the Bai clan within a radius of tens of miles. Mid-gods and weaker high gods didn't have the ability to enter this area. If they did, they would die. There were more than 1,000 Monarch clan members attacking, while the Bai clan members only had a little more than 100. There was a huge disparity between the two sides. However, when the battle really started, the Monarch clan members couldn't take them down. Not only couldn't they take them down, but they were also dying very quickly. In less than 5 minutes, less than 600 of them were left. No. The Bai clan still has a god king. Not only that, but there are 2 of them. It's those 2 women. Quick, get the godly kings to help. Without the godly kings, we won't be able to hold on. Some lucky survivors brought out the situation inside. Snow White and Bai Susu, the 2 women who had betrayed the Monarch clan to marry Linjun, had both advanced to the godly king realm. 3 godly kings in one clan. Not to mention the underground city, even in the entire Abyss country and the entire Fiend Star, this was an extremely rare occurrence. Yet, it actually happened in the Bai clan. If it wasn't for this moment, it was certain that the Bai clan's rise would be unstoppable. Others would fight to curry favor with them. They might even become the #1 clan on the Fiend Star. However, at this moment, the godly kings who came with Huang Tian couldn't just stand by and watch. If the Bai clan were to recover and rise again, they would be in big trouble. Chapter 1264. It didn't take long for the Bai family's battle to end. Snow White and Bai Susu's resistance attracted the retaliation of many godly kings. After all, they had just entered the godly king realm. Although Snow White and Bai Susu were stubborn, the difference in strength was too great. Several Abyss Masters joined forces and defeated the 2 girls on the spot, ending the battle. The Tree God King and 9 Ghost King joined forces with Huang Tian to defeat the Nine-Tailed King. Then, a bloodbath ensued. Everyone in the Bai family who was still alive was slaughtered. Shiny god crystals and god stones were piled up in the middle of the courtyard. The flowing blood announced the official destruction of this great family. Now, only 3 severely injured godly kings were left. The Destruction Master took out a few chains from the god world. These chains are called god-binding chains. They can even bind godly kings. I'll leave the Bai family's godly kings to you, Huang Tian. Huang Tian took the 3 chains with a ferocious expression. He went to the Nine-Tailed King first and chuckled. Nine-Tailed King, you're brainless. You're the same as you were many years ago. You're just a mantis trying to stop a chariot. You think the 3 of you can fight the Emperor family? Don't blame me for not giving you a chance. As he spoke, Huang Tian raised the sword in his hand and pierced the Nine-Tailed King's collarbone. Blood splattered. A chain went through the left shoulder and came out the right shoulder. The 2 ends pulled, and the Nine-Tailed King was tightly bound, unable to move. This was the power of the god-binding chains. They could even stop the circulation of god power. They were specially used to bind people. Hang this old bastard up for me. Let the others in the underground city see the consequences of going against the Emperor family. Someone erected a 1,000-meter flagpole and hung the Nine-Tailed King on it. A godly king of the past was now like a prisoner being hung up alive. The Nine-Tailed King was truly pitiful as a godly king. After hanging the Nine-Tailed King, Huang Tian looked at Snow White and Bai Susu. The 2 of you, although you're women, since you're unwilling to join the Emperor family, you're my enemies. I've never had any pity for my enemies. Huang Tian chuckled. Didn't you want to be with Ghostface King? I'll fulfill your wish today. Puff. The two god-binding chains pierced through by Shui and by Susu's shoulders, causing their faces to twist in pain. Hang these two girls who don't know what's good for them in front of the sacred mountain, and let them accompany the ghost-masked king day and night. Two abyss masters, the abyss lords, the abyss, the abyss's abyss, and brought them to the god mountain. With a raise of his hand, two stone pillars rose from the ground, and the two women were hung on top of them. Ha ha ha! You gods' kings, st dites Ts king s. Godly kings. Snow White and by Susu looked miserable. It wasn't because of their fates, but because they knew that their loved ones were under the god mountain. It had been 2,000 years. They wondered how Linjin was doing now. No matter how much pain they were in, going from king of God to losing their powers, it wasn't something an ordinary person could bear. They cared about it, but they cared more about their loved ones. This was the difference between infatuated women and men. After they were hung here, the two abyss masters ordered the Ju Tian to keep a close eye on them. The destruction master came too. He looked at the Ju Tian from head to toe. Although you almost married them back then, don't forget that they're already married. Their hearts don't belong to you. Don't have any thoughts you shouldn't have. Thank you, Destruction Master, for your advice. The Ju Tian understands. It's good that you understand. We'll broadcast the situation here to the Emperor clan to help with today's drinking. With that said, the Lord of Destruction set up a broadcast so that the Bai family could see what was going on through the water mirror. After doing all this, the Lord of Destruction and the other Lord of the Abyss chose to leave. Only the two frail women were left hanging on the stone pillar in the sky. Blood flowed down the chains. The Ju Tian looked up at the sky and then at the God Mountain. She didn't say a word. She didn't seem to find anything wrong. Before leaving, the Destruction Master glanced at the Ju Tian again. Then he said to the people beside him, "Something's wrong." Second brother, what's wrong? When a man sees the woman he once loved suffering, regardless of whether he loves that woman or not, his gaze and actions shouldn't be so calm. Why is Ju Tian acting like he's facing strangers when facing the Bai sisters? The other Abyss Master was also stunned. That's right. The Ju Tian's behavior was the most normal. He looked the most invulnerable. There were no fluctuations in his mind or emotions. This was how most martial artists should behave. However, the person he was facing was different. It was abnormal for him to behave like this. Ju Tian was too calm. There wasn't the slightest fluctuation in his emotions. Even a god king wouldn't be able to do this, unless he was a machine. Of course, there was another possibility. He was being controlled by someone else. Everything he did was for the sake of his master. His thoughts had become secondary. Second brother, do you mean we should try? No, I just did a quick check. If the Ju Tian's soul is locked, then the person who locked it must have a higher mind power than me. We won't be able to see anything. I've already informed Big Brother that the Terror Master is coming. Hopefully, he'll be able to find some clues. Hopefully, I'm just overthinking. As long as Big Brother is here, it doesn't matter. Big Brother is a quasi-ruler. The Destruction Master nodded. Yes, as long as Big Brother is here, everything will be fine. So let's ignore the situation here. Let's go to the Bai family for a drink. All right. Third brother died in battle. The Emperor family is responsible. We must eat as much as we can and make them poor. Ha! Seeing a beauty in distress is also one of the best ways to boost one's mood. The two Abyss Masters left with the cave-in wind and returned to the Bai family. At the Bai family, everything had been cleaned up. The battlefield had been cleaned and rearranged. It had been a hellish place a moment ago. Now it was full of flowers, singing and dancing. Performance teams from various races began their exciting performances. Servants shuttled back and forth, carrying all kinds of food and wine. The god kings had also let go of their inhibitions. Each of them had their arms around seductive women and were yelling merrily. Imperial Sky stood up with a cup of wine. Everyone, I'm honored to have received your help today. We've finally avenged the Emperor family's humiliation. We've completely wiped out the Bai family. Ghostface King and the Bai family members are living a life worse than death. Happy. Happy. Please raise your cups and drink with me. Let's celebrate together. Cheers. Cheers. Chapter 1265. After 3 rounds of drinks, the atmosphere became more lively. Emperor Sky said to the Lord of Destruction beside him, "Brother, let's enjoy the scenery of the sacred mountain." Ninth Ghost King immediately said, "That's a good idea." Ghostface King must have gotten used to living alone under the sacred mountain for the past 2,000 years. But now, his 2 women are tied up and suffering in front of the sacred mountain. Let's see if he can still endure it. Who knows, he might do something. I really want to see him struggle unwillingly. The other God Kings all nodded and laughed loudly. Watching something exciting on a day like this was truly their common wish. Seeing that everyone was in high spirits, the Lord of Destruction nodded. All right, since that's the case, let's take a look. Who knows, there might really be a big show today. With that, the Lord of Destruction waved his hand, and a water mirror appeared in front of everyone. The water mirror showed the situation on the sacred mountain. There were 2 stone pillars that rose from the ground in front of the divine mountain, and 2 beautiful women were chained by metal chains. They were by Shui and by Susu. However, now that the chains were dyed red with blood and their white clothes fluttered in the wind, there was a different kind of poignant beauty. At the foot of the sacred mountain, the Ju Tian was still guarding it diligently. The sacred mountain was still tall and majestic, as if nothing had changed. After watching for a while, everyone's interest was waning. Sigh. How boring. This Ghostface King is only SOSO. His women are there, but he can't even save them. I'm not watching anymore. In the end, there are no miracles. There aren't many miracles in this world. The sacred mountain was originally refined from a star system, and with the support of the Gravity River domain, it's not something Ghostface King can shake. Just as the Lord of Destruction was about to put away the water mirror, Lussman suddenly waved his hand. Wait, there seems to be some movement. Everyone's attention immediately gathered to watch carefully. Lin Jin's cultivation on the sacred mountain had reached the final stage. The genes of the heavenly behemoth had completely fused with his bloodline, and he was currently evolving his divine body. His body was the astral beast divine body, the black hole beast divine body. For there was a formula for the evolution of the divine body. Once the maximum amount of divine power was activated, it would be multiplied by 10, and that would be the final energy value of the divine body. The divine power in Lin Jin's body quickly condensed into a gigantic astral beast. The gigantic black hole beast was 10,000 meters long and 7,000 meters tall. It shook its head and wagged its tail as if it wanted to devour the stars. Transform. With a thought from Lin Jin, the black hole beast's energy body left the god world and covered Lin Jin's body. Lin Jin's body flashed with a layer of lustrous light. Then, under his control, the light faded. This is my god body. At this stage, the functions of my body depend on my god body to operate. When I fight, no matter how much damage my enemy inflicts on me, it won't affect my body. It will only consume my god body's energy. With the god body, the body's ability has become very small. It will only occupy 10% of the god body. Every time the energy of the god body is consumed below 10%, it will be life-threatening. Therefore, every god king has to strengthen their god body as much as possible. Lin Jin calculated for a moment. Currently, his godly power was at its maximum, which meant that his godly body's final energy was 257,940,000. However, he had the chaotic green lotus. This lotus had brought a qualitative change to Lin Jin, reducing the consumption of his divine power by 100%. Now, when he evolved his god body, His god body's energy had increased by 100%. As a result, Lin Zhen's god body's energy had reached 515,880,000 points. This was a great surprise for Lin Zhen. The stronger one's divine body was, the stronger one's survivability would be. With so many energy points, it wouldn't be easy for anyone to kill Lin Zhen. Moreover, Lin Zhen had the mixed yuan armor. This godly armor could directly reduce damage by half, greatly increasing his survivability. At this point, Lin Zhen's strength had truly reached a peak. Even among pseudo-rulers, Lin Zhen was definitely not weak. He was very strong. Phew! It's about time. 2,000 years have passed. It's time for me to go out. Lin Zhen looked inside himself and saw that the chaotic green lotus seed still hadn't changed. He was originally looking forward to what would appear inside, but now he couldn't wait any longer. This mountain that has been pressing down on my head for 2,000 years. It's time for it to be removed. Lin Zhen raised his head and looked at the god mountain. The weight of this mountain had already reached an unparalleled level. This mountain originally belonged to a god king. It was a high-grade domain equipment. Later on, something had been added to it. After 2,000 years of fusion, it had reached the level of a top-grade domain equipment. If that wasn't the case, the Lord of Hatred wouldn't have given up on this god mountain without any resistance. However, Lin Zhen wouldn't give up. Today, he wanted to see how difficult it was to move this god mountain that weighed several galaxies. He used his shoulder to support it. It was extremely heavy and unshakable. Godly power erupted. Lin Zhen opened his godly domain at this moment. His 8 clones gathered at the lotus seed and fused their godly power. His entire body's power was concentrated at one point, slanting against the god mountain. The veins on his head bulged. I don't believe that the current me can't move this mountain of yours. Open for me. Creak, creak, creak. Bones creak. The earth shook at this moment. The entire underground city, no, the entire deep abyss country, seemed to have experienced an earthquake. This god mountain that even pseudo-rulers couldn't move was actually forcefully pushed open by Lin Zhen. Treasure-seeking vine, come and lend me a hand, Lin Zhen shouted. The treasure-seeking vine on his wrist rushed out with a whoosh. The treasure-seeking vine, which was long enough to circle the earth several times, appeared under the god mountain. Its body, which was as thick as a mountain range, forcibly shared part of Lin Zhen's weight. Aya! With help, Lin Zhen let out a roar. As the earth around him shook, he gradually straightened his back. The earth was shaking and the planet was trembling. The entire underground city, which was the core of the shaking, even cracked the ground. Those who were still celebrating at the Bai family were all dumbfounded. This was because they could clearly see through the water mirror that this god mountain was actually forcefully pushed up by a person. This man. It was Ghostface King. It was Ghostface King Lin Zhen. Chapter 1266. This scene shocked everyone and toppled their understanding of the world. Not only was Ghostface King not dead, but he was also carrying the mountain. Was it that easy to carry the mountain? From Ghostface King's point of view, all the supreme beings present would be lucky to survive. Carrying the mountain? What a joke. He. How did he do it? Emperor Sky stuttered. Not good. If the Ghost Mask King escapes from the bottom of the mountain, we might be in trouble. Even the old fogey 9 Ghost King was shocked. Lussman stared at the water mirror. He had always been confident, but he didn't know if the 8 hammers could injure Ghostface King seriously. Just as they were panicking, Lin Zhen lifted his head and looked into the sky. At this moment, Bai Shui and Bai Susu's faces were already covered in tears as they stared at the man who was carrying the mountain. This was their man. They knew that he wouldn't fall so easily. He had gotten up. Sister, look. Your brother-in-law is fine. Sister, look. Your brother-in-law is still alive. Lin Zhen saw the miserable state his 2 wives were in and his eyes were about to spit fire. He had come out a little too late. How could he let his 2 wives suffer? Mental strength overflowed from the bottom of the sacred mountain. He instantly sensed the surveillance of the water mirror. Bastard! Your end is here. His steps were firm as he pushed the bottom of the sacred mountain away. Lin Zhen was about to break free. Everyone was in a state of panic. Only the Destruction Lord remained relatively calm. Don't worry. Someone will come to take care of him soon. Who? If we fight him one-on-one, I'm afraid we might not be his match. Just wait and see. With the Lord of Destruction's calmness, everyone was reassured. They activated their divine power and calmed the shaking ground. Everyone stared at the screen and waited for the result. On the screen, Lin Zhen let out a furious roar. He gradually straightened his back and stood up. The tens of thousands of feet tall divine mountain swayed on his shoulder and separated from the earth with a rumbling noise. Smoke and dust rose in all directions, and the earth shook. It was as if doomsday had arrived, and the scene was extremely shocking. The Ju Tian clenched his fists in front of the sacred mountain. His face was filled with excitement as he waited for the arrival of his master. At this critical moment, the black gas in the sky suddenly churned, and a figure descended from the sky. The man landed directly in front of the Ju Tian. He had a dozen tentacles on his body, and his face was ferocious. There was no one in the Abyss Kingdom who didn't know this person. He was the #1 quasi-dominator among the 9 Abyss Masters, the Lord of Fear. Seeing the Lord of Fear, everyone was delighted. With Ghostface King's current strength, ordinary deity kings wouldn't be able to suppress him. However, the Lord of Fear was different. He was a quasi-sovereign expert. It could be said that in the entire demonic star, there was only one person who could make the Lord of Fear fear. That was the lightning ruler of the demonic star. The Lord of Fear did not care about anyone else. Arriving in front of Ju Tian, the Lord of Fear ignored Lin Zhen, who was about to escape. Instead, he glanced at Ju Tian. Oh, as expected, his soul has been locked. No wonder Ghostface King was able to escape from the sacred mountain. It must be because of the tunnel behind you. Bang! The ground exploded, revealing the tunnel that Ju Tian had dug. On the other side of the water mirror, all the deity kings were enlightened. No wonder Ghostface King was able to escape. It turned out that the Ju Tian's soul had been locked by Lin Zhen. It was a pity that they didn't have enough mental strength to notice that Lin Zhen had locked his soul. As a quasi-sovereign, the Lord of Fear naturally had powerful mental strength. It was normal for him to notice it. Soul lock wasn't scary. It could be broken with enough mental strength. A streak of mental strength rushed over and circled around the Ju Tian's mind. The Ju Tian hugged his head in pain. Many mental evil spirits rose into the sky. Those were the mental evil spirits that Lin Zhen had injected into the Ju Tian's mind. Now they had all been expelled. The Ju Tian knelt down and rolled on the ground. It seemed that he had gone through a painful struggle. After a while, the Ju Tian stood up and bowed to the Lord of Fear. Thank you, deity, for saving me from Ghostface King's evil clutches. Ju Tian, you didn't have a choice. You can leave now. The Ju Tian stepped aside respectfully. His eyes fell on Snow White and Bai Susu, who were on the stone pillars. His eyes were filled with hatred. It seemed that he still held a grudge against them for what had happened in the past. The Lord of Fear glanced at the Ju Tian. Then, he turned around and looked at Lin Zhen. The Lord of Fear turned around and saw Lin Zhen moving forward step by step to the edge of the sacred mountain. One more step and he would be out of the sacred mountain. Ah, Ghostface King, I don't know if you have heard of this sentence before. It's a pity that this step is like the end of the world in your eyes. It's a step that you can never take. After saying that, the Lord of Fear rose into the air. He stretched out his hands and a piece of golden paper appeared in his hands. You came to the Abyss Country and did whatever you wanted. You deserve to die. Now, I will suppress you for a while and let you feel the taste of fear. I will let you know that the name of the Lord of Fear is absolutely inviolable. The piece of paper rose into the air from his hand and landed on the divine mountain. When the piece of paper fell down, the sacred mountain was covered with golden words. The loose structure of the sacred mountain suddenly became extremely firm. The strength of the sacred mountain, which had been moved by Linjun, began to concentrate on Linjun. Linjun moved the sacred mountain without carrying all the weight on his body. Carrying only one end of the sacred mountain and carrying all the weight on his body were two different concepts. The purpose of this piece of paper was to concentrate all the strength on one point. Rumble! A shocking weight pressed down on Linjun's body. The moment he came out of the mountain, Linjun was suppressed. Ha ha! My returning talisman is strong enough, right? This is a treasure given to me by the Rock Dominator. You can stay here and watch us celebrate. Abyss teleportation. Today I will be the host. Everyone, come here and watch the show. A black force appeared out of thin air. The Lord of Fear and the Lord of Destruction joined forces and teleported everyone from the Bai family to the Abyss Underground Palace. When everyone arrived, they bowed to the Lord of Fear. Senior, you are indeed the #1 expert in the Abyss country. Your moves are extraordinary. Ghostface King is only SOSO. This time, he is completely finished. Only his head is out. His body is still under the mountain. I seem to have heard of a story somewhere. A monkey was trapped under the mountain for 500 years. That's about it. However, he is even more pitiful than the monkey. It has been 2,000 years and he still can't come out. Emperor Sky warmly invited the Lord of Fear to sit on the main seat. Then, he asked the servants to serve wine. Chapter 1267. Emperor Sky didn't care about the Ju Tian for the time being. Instead, he warmly invited everyone to drink. When he raised his cup, he looked at the nine-tailed king who was also transported here and chuckled, "Take a good look at this world. This might be your last day." His gaze then fell on Snow White and Bai Shuang. Seeing that the two girls were still staring at Linjun with teary eyes, he called them stupid women in his heart and continued drinking. After drinking 2 cups, Emperor Sky looked left and right but still didn't see the Ju Tian. Where did that B***starred go? There were 8 Abyss Masters and 6 Divine Kings here. The Ju Tian was also one of the main characters in this matter. How could he not be here? Could it be that his temperament changed after his soul was locked? He wasn't such an ignorant person in the past. Just as he was about to send people to look for him, Snow White suddenly said to the people below, "You guys can cause a ruckus now. What's the point of bullying others with numbers? If you dare let my husband out, he'll definitely kill all of you." Emperor Sky was instantly annoyed. He didn't care about looking for the Ju Tian and said to Snow White, "You be***tch. You were originally the Ju Tian's fiancé, but you lost your virginity to someone else in the end. You even went against the Monarch clan. Today you can't be left alive." Snow White scoffed, "You're just a scoundrel. I'm afraid you'll end up worse than me soon." Bai Susu added, "That's right. What Monarch clan? They're just a bunch of greedy people who want to eat swan meat. They'll get their retribution soon." Emperor Sky's expression grew worse. Talking wasn't his strong suit. "I don't need you 2 little girls to talk. I'll let you get your retribution now. Ju Tian, I'll leave these 2 to you. You can do whatever you want with them." However, the Ju Tian didn't respond. Just as Emperor Sky was puzzled, the nine-tailed king shouted, "Don't touch my Bai family's people. Come at me if you dare." "Alright, I'll start with you." Emperor Sky couldn't be bothered with drinking as he got up and flew up. He ruthlessly slashed at Nine-Tailed King who was hanging on the stone pillar. The sword pierced through the heart. Although it did not kill the Nine-Tailed King, it caused her to wither considerably. Huang Tian waved the treasured sword in his hand repeatedly while he gritted his teeth. He wanted nothing more than to cut the nine-tailed king into 1,000 pieces. All the god kings present raised their cups and drank. This kind of scene was nothing to them. It did not affect their drinking mood at all. The nine-tailed king endured it silently, as if the injury wasn't on her body. She was indeed a tough nut to crack. Just as Emperor Sky made his move, the Lord of Fear's expression suddenly changed. Not good. These people are stalling for time. Look at the sacred mountain. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's eyes focused on the sacred mountain. At the top of the sacred mountain, the Jew Tian had climbed up and was now uncovering the golden paper that the god of fear had put down. At this moment, everyone instantly understood. No wonder the 3 members of the Bai family dared to be stubborn and provoke the god of fear. It was because they were stalling for time on purpose to attract the attention of others and buy time for the Jew Tian. However, the Jew Tian had obviously unlocked her soul. Why would she still go to the top of the mountain? Now there was no time to figure out the whole story. The god of fear, whose expression was extremely ugly, roared angrily. He swung his hand and attacked from a distance. However, his attack was still a little too late. The Jew Tian was turned into ashes by his attack. However, the paper on the sacred mountain had already been removed by him. The Jew Tian and Lin Jun had been opposing each other all their lives. However, in the end, they had helped him dig the tunnel and uncover the talisman. In the end, they had died a worthy death. As the talisman was removed, the sacred mountain suddenly shook violently. Lin Jun, who was being suppressed, roared angrily. His divine power erupted, and he stood up again with the help of the sacred mountain. Everyone attack! Don't let him come out! The divine kings, who had been watching the show confidently, felt a tinge of fear at this moment. Although it seemed that Ghostface King was still no match for them, none of them dared to take the risk. Everyone flew over, including Emperor Sky, who was attacking the nine-tailed king. Everyone attacked with their own attacks. However, it was too late. Lin Jun's mixed yuan armor shone with white light. Among these people's attacks, only the god of fear's attack caused more damage. The other people's attacks did not seem to cause much damage. After a round of attacks, Emperor Sky suddenly shouted, "Oh no! We should take down the 3 members of the Bai family first to make him hesitate." However, it was too late now. Lin Jun finally got rid of the mountain above his head and rushed out. As soon as he came out, he ran directly to the stone pillar. A space quickly formed around him and enveloped the 3 members of the Bai family. He swung the golden eagle sword in his hand and 3 sword gleams were thrown out. Clang! 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 The chains binding the 3 of them were cut off by the golden eagle sword. The 3 of them regained their freedom. Lin Jun did not have time to talk to them. This was not the Sea of Constellations. The spatial laws were not omnipotent. He raised his hand and kept the 3 of them in the realm of the gods. Snow White and the other 2 were very cooperative. Although they were also divine kings, it was better for them not to affect Lin Jun in this battle. The 3 of them disappeared into thin air. Lin Jun was relieved of his worries. Swoosh! The tentacles of the god of fear broke through the air. This was the demonic star. The spatial laws were different from the Sea of Constellations. He could also break through space to attack. However, Lin Jun had the upper hand. Facing the attack of the god of fear, a dark golden light flashed in front of Lin Jun. The treasure-seeking vine appeared. This vine stretched across the sky, blocking everyone's attack. A plant life at the level of a quasi-ruler. How is this possible? Feeling the powerful aura of the treasure-seeking vine, the divine kings were all shocked. Although the combat power of a plant life was not as strong as that of other races, its level was still there. This plant life was not something an ordinary divine king could deal with. Moreover, its vitality was very strong. The treasure-seeking vine was like an infinitely long dragon. It almost covered the sky and blocked the attacks of others. It also gave Lin Jun enough time. Just as the god of fear was attacking the treasure-seeking vine fiercely, Lin Zhen completed the transformation of the black hole beast. Get out of the way! When Lin Zhen's black hole beast appeared, these people immediately scattered and flew away. No one dared to face Lin Zhen's move directly, including the god of fear. However, no one expected that Lin Zhen's target was not them. Instead, it was the sacred mountain that was completely separated from the ground. After it was completely separated from the ground, the sacred mountain became an ownerless domain equipment. It was a top-grade domain equipment. Although it was difficult to take the sacred mountain, Lin Zhen would not allow it to fall into the hands of others. He directly used the black hole devour on the sacred mountain. The sacred mountain was very dense, but its volume was not very big. Lin Zhen was high up in the sky. The black hole death ripple shrouded the sacred mountain. The sacred mountain that trapped me for 2,000 years. Come. Come. Before his voice died away, the sacred mountain finally could not resist the strong suction of the black hole devour and was completely sucked into the black hole devour. After it was swallowed by the black hole devour, it instantly became Lin Zhen's treasure. With a thought, the sacred mountain appeared again. With a boom, it blocked the passage to the underground abyss. The earth chi was completely isolated. Even the lords of the abyss could not leave through the abyss. At this moment, Lin Zhen floated in the air. His long hair fluttered and he revealed a strange smile. Chapter 1268. It should be noted that there were tens of thousands of people present today. Not only were there many divine kings here, but there were also countless quasi-divine kings, superior gods, and so on. The Emperor clan, which was not prosperous in the first place, turned out in full force this time. Now there were so many people, but Lin Zhen completely blocked their way out. No one could leave. Seeing that they couldn't leave, these divine kings who didn't intend to run stopped. The treasure-hunting vine was badly damaged under the fierce attack led by the Lord of Fear. Now it had turned into a bracelet and returned to Lin Zhen's wrist. Lin Zhen also removed the black hole beast transformation. He didn't look so scary anymore. In the case of being surrounded by people, the black hole beast transformation was not useful. If you attacked others, you would be attacked by others. The Lord of Fear said coldly, "Ghost-Face King, you really surprised me. What's the matter with the Ju Tian?" Lin Zhen glanced at him. "You think you've dispelled absolute heaven's soul lock, but what you don't know is that when I first lifted the sacred mountain, I took advantage of the slight delay after you saw through my soul lock to once again reinforce my soul lock. The me from 2,000 years ago and the me from 2,000 years later, my mental strength is different. Of course you won't be able to dispel it. 2,000 years ago, Lin Zhen's mental strength was 33% of the crystal condensation period. Now, the mental strength of the Lord of Fear was no more than the same as that of Lin Zhen. But 2,000 years later, Lin Zhen's mental strength had increased to 38%. With an increase of 5%, his mental strength was much worse. Although Lin Zhen carried the sacred mountain, he added the power of Soul Lock to the Ju Tian again after the Lord of Fear finished the first exploration. In just a few seconds everything changed. The Lord of Fear seemed to be removed, but in fact, Lin Zhen ordered the Ju Tian to pretend. He continued to keep this undercover pawn. Finally, at the most critical moment, he quietly climbed up the sacred mountain, uncovered the talisman, and completely freed Lin Zhen. Of course, the Bi-Sisters and Nine-Tailed King also played a part in this. They were all smart people, and they knew what to do at the right time. Because they were hanging from the top of the stone pillar, they could see the Ju Tian climbing the mountain from their position. Other people could not see them. The sacred mountain also blocked the prying of spiritual power, so the Ju Tian's movement was not discovered. Upon hearing Lin Zhen's explanation, the Lord of Fear was annoyed that he had been fooled. Good. That's right, but I still have to say that you're very stupid. You're facing a quasi-ruler and so many god kings, yet you still dare to cut off your own path of survival. Today, I'll eliminate you once and for all. That's exactly what I wanted to say. From today onwards, the Abyssal Kingdom will no longer have an Abyssal Master. With a loud boom, the demon god wings behind Lin Jin unfurled. Above his head, the mysterious yellow pagoda rose into the air and spun. Streams of mysterious yellow qi hung down, forming a protective shield. He wore the mixed yuan armor, had the sun, moon, and stars hovered above his head, and held the golden eagle and thunder gull in his hands. However, he did not wear the ghost face mask this time. There was no need for it. As the lotus blossomed, Lin Jin's powerful divine body's aura soared into the sky. A powerful airwave rolled out, and it was so strong that no one dared to look at it directly. This guy. He's already condensed a divine body. Emperor Sky could tell that Lin Jin was different from the others. So what if he's condensed a divine body? Who hasn't condensed a divine body here? Everyone, let's go. Back then, we were blocked by the Earth Chi in the depths of the Earth's core, so we didn't have the chance to obtain this person's treasure. This time, he won't have such a chance. The God King's present had stayed until today because of Lin Jin's treasure. Back then, Lin Jin and the Lord of Hatred were both in the Abyssal Kingdom. They had caused the Earth Chi to churn and cut off these people's path of obtaining the treasure. This time, they could not miss out on this opportunity. Almost everyone instantly unleashed their most powerful combat forms and took out all their trump card. The first person to make a move was the person who ranked 6th among the Abyssal Masters. This person was called the Lord of Torture, and he was closer to Lin Jin. He felt that it made sense for him to be the first to make a move. Since he was the first to make a move and attacked with all his might, Ghostface King would not have any chance to retaliate because the others' attacks would arrive soon. Even if there was some danger, the Lord of Torture's divine body was huge, and his energy points had reached 19 million. This was definitely one of the best among the God Kings. With this powerful divine body, he was confident that he could hold off Lin Jin for a while. When Lin Jin was killed by the others, he would have a chance to reap the benefits. The Lord of Torture made up his mind and made the first move. Lin Jin had never seen this Lord of Torture before, but this did not affect anything. They were all enemies, and he had to treat his enemies equally. The Lord of Torture flew over, and his body transformed into a huge monster in the air. It was impossible to tell what species he was as he had a strange shape. Good timing. Lin Jin had not fought for 2,000 years, and his thirst for battle was unbearable. Now that he had advanced to a pseudo-ruler, he would not take this God King seriously, even though his opponent looked like he could take a beating. The golden eagle sword in his right hand did not dodge. Instead, it met the Lord of Torture's sword head-on. The golden eagle sword was formed from the essence of gold. After being infused with gold, its power was comparable to that of a top-grade weapon. With Lin Jin's current strength, he did not need to use any special battle technique. All he needed was a simple downward slash. Not a trace of his divine power was wasted. This slash looked ordinary, but its power was shocking. Gotcha! After a loud sound, the Lord of Torture's sword was cut in half by the golden eagle sword. The blade slid across the Lord of Torture's body. A long, bloody gash appeared from head to toe. The Lord of Torture's body had 19 million energy points, but 97% of it had been damaged. The Lord of Torture still had a low-grade armor that reduced 10% of the damage. He also had 2 defense-type items that could reduce 20% of the damage. Yet, he had still been damaged. If he did not have any defenses, he would have died. This had already damaged his foundation. The Lord of Torture screamed as his body tumbled down. Behind him, the Tree God King had also followed suit. Lin Jin frowned slightly. He was unhappy that he had not killed the Tree God King with a casual slash. Did I fail? No, I have to make up for it. Seeing that the Tree God King was the second to charge over, Lin Jin waved the golden eagle sword and used his battle technique. Rakshasa. The tree god king was a plant life form. At this moment, he had already transformed into a huge tree. Facing Lin Jin's slash, he tried to block it with his 6-foot-long staff. However, the Ghost Mask King in front of him was no longer the Ghost Mask King of the past. This slash was so powerful that it could split the heavens and earth. It could not be blocked at all. Like a thunderbolt, the Tree God King's energy points were depleted. His body was cut in half by Lin Jin's slash. The huge collision of energy caused the weaker side to be directly exhausted to death. His 11 million energy points could not even block Lin Jin's slash. He was killed on the spot. On the other hand, Lin Jin's sword energy had not been depleted yet. It hit the Lord of Torture, who was still falling down. The Lord of Torture's 3% energy points could not withstand it. Lin Jin killed him as well. Only after killing 2 God Kings with a single strike did Lin Jin reveal a sliver of satisfaction.